I woke up sitting down. That wouldn't be accurate. I didn't wake up. It was more like my life was a movie and someone finally decided to hit the play button. A man's voice echoed across open air, amplified by speakers I couldn't see. And it is with great pride that the International Hunter Coalition welcomes the class of 2044 to San Nicolas Academy. Hold on. Where the fuck was I? My eyes focused on rows of folding chairs in front of me. Hundreds of them, filled with teenagers in identical uniforms with color-coded trim on the shoulders. Red, blue, gold, silver, bronze. Beyond the chairs was a stage, podium, flags from a dozen different countries hanging limp in the ocean breeze. Ocean breeze. I turned my head slowly and took in my surroundings. We were outside in a massive amphitheater that was carved into a hillside overlooking the ocean. The sun was beginning to set behind us, casting long shadows across the amphitheater. I could smell the salt from the sea breeze and there were seagulls crying in the distance. What the... My voice came out alto instead of tenor with a certain rasp to it. That wasn't my fucking voice. I looked down. My hands were on my thighs and they were pale with fingers that looked like sausages. No calluses. No tan lines from my watch. No tattoo on my left wrist. These weren't my hands. The speaker droned on. Represent not just your nations, but humanity's collective will to survive in this new era of... I lifted my hands, turned them over, flexed the fingers. Fat. These hands were fat. I looked down at my body. Holy shit. I was wearing the same black uniform as everyone else, but it fit wrong. Too tight across the stomach. The fabric pulled and bunched at the sides where it couldn't quite contain the gut underneath. My thighs pressed together, filling the chair. I could feel the weight, the heaviness, the way my stomach pushed against the waistband of my pants. This wasn't my body. My body was lean, cut. I'd put in hours at the gym 5 days a week for the past 3 years specifically so I wouldn't look like this. Those who have earned their place through skill and dedication, and those who have been granted the extraordinary opportunity through our lottery program. The words cut through the fog in my brain. I knew this. I'd read this. Or skimmed it. Yeah. Skimmed it while taking a shit one afternoon when I was bored and my phone was at 12% battery. Hunter Academy. America's elite. Some nobody author's crack at the Hunter Academy genre. Progression fantasy bullshit set in the States instead of Korea for once. The protagonist was a lottery winner. Underdog with a hidden talent. Worked hard. Made friends. Fell in love with some pure-hearted girl who believed in him. The book was the definition of mid. You could tell the author had spent most of his adolescent life reading fantasy light novels and manhwas. You could also tell the author hadn't lived life enough to make any of the romantic scenes feel real. Especially the sex scenes. I remembered that specifically. There'd been this one chapter where the main character finally got together with the girl, and the author had written it like he'd never touched a woman in his life. Her petals bloomed beneath his touch. Who the fuck said that? Nobody. Nobody who'd actually made a woman come said shit like that. I'd left a comment. Something like, author Nim clearly doesn't know where the clit is. Got downvoted to hell. Banned from the comments section. Worth it. And now I was... A window materialized in front of my face. Not a window. A glowing screen. Transparent. Floating in midair like someone had ripped a UI element out of a mobile game and copy-pasted it into reality. Welcome, user. You have successfully transmigrated into the body of Jace Monroe in the world of Hunter Academy. America's elite. Analyzing host compatibility. Analyzing soul structure. Analysis complete. Congratulations. You have been granted the divine milking system. You've got to be fucking kidding me. The girl sitting 2 seats to my left glanced over. Skinny. Asian. Nervous looking. She gave me a weird look and then went back to staring at the stage. Divine milking system. Interface system status level. 1 experience. 0 1,000ths remaining lifespan. 71 hours 53 minutes points. 0 core abilities essence extraction rank. Max type. Passive physical contact with designated targets triggers lactation regardless of biological state. Extracted essence can be harvested and stored. Quality and quantity determined by target's rank and emotional state. Required. Skin contact with breast's ability theft rank. Max passive by consuming a target's essence. This grants the user access to their primary ability at copper rank. Permanent until overwritten. Upgradable via points. Snake Eyes rank. Max active direct eye contact reveals target's bust size and rank, and creates compulsion scaling with existing attraction. Ineffective on target's 2+ ranks above user. Euphoric feedback rank. Max active channeled touch transmits pleasure directly to target's nervous system. Intensity ranges from subtle warmth to overwhelming ecstasy. Builds tolerance with repeated use. Private Sanctum rank. Copper active A pocket dimension fully customizable by the user. Current capacity, 1 target. Current duration, 30 minutes/day. Resets midnight PST. Upgrade, 500 points. Overclock rank. Copper active consume 1 stored cup to elevate 1 stolen ability up 2 tiers for 4 minutes. Cooldown, 6 hours. Essence Vault rank. 1 passive dimensional storage. Capacity, 3 cups, indefinite freshness. Upgrade, plus 3 slots per 300 points. Current abilities, none. System mechanics 10 points per cup, consume 20 points first extraction 100 points equals plus 1 day lifespan ability upgrades. Copper bronze 500 points bronze silver 1,500 points silver gold 5,000 points gold platinum 20,000 points platinum diamond 50,000 points. I read the entire thing 3 times just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Divine milking system. Lifespan, 71 hours 53 minutes. I was gonna die in 3 days unless I convinced women to let me milk them like dairy cows. This is the most degenerate incel bullshit I have ever seen in my entire life. I said it out loud. A few heads turned in my section. I didn't care. On stage, the speaker had been replaced by a beautiful woman in a white suit. She was saying something about international cooperation and the future of humanity, but I couldn't focus on her words because there was a fucking death timer floating in front of my face. I needed 100 points to buy 1 day of life. 10 points per cup of milk. 20 if it was their first time lactating. And I was in the body of an overweight lottery winner at an elite hunter academy surrounded by teenagers who probably thought I was human garbage. Okay. Think. I leaned back in my chair. Felt the metal creak under my weight. The last thing I even remembered was walking out of Melissa's apartment after fucking her until she passed out. I went to the day and night to grab a Calypso Ocean Blue lemonade and a blue Powerade to get some hydration in my system. And then, shit, I don't remember. All that mattered was I'm now here in this new world in a fat suit. The world from that shitty web novel written by some virgin who definitely didn't know the difference between a G-spot and a clit. I glanced around the amphitheater again. Really looked this time. The stadium was divided into sections. Guild affiliations, probably. The front rows near the stage had students with gold trim on their shoulders. They sat straight, confident. Some of them were on their phones. Bored. Behind them were the silver and bronze sections. More attentive. Less expensive clothes visible under the uniforms. And then there was my section. The back. Lottery admissions. Maybe 30 of us total scattered across 100 empty seats like we were contagious. Nobody was sitting close to anyone else. Nobody was talking. We were the rejects. The charity cases. The scratch-offs who'd somehow won a ticket into a world we didn't belong in. And I had less than 72 hours to seduce someone before I died. Which brings us to our newest students. The woman on stage was saying, "Will our lottery admissions please stand?" Oh hell no. But my body was already moving. Muscle memory. Conditioning. I stood up along with the other lottery winners around me. 500 heads turned to look at us. I felt the weight of their stares. Dismissive. Curious. Amused. From the front row, a guy with platinum blonde hair and a jawline that could cut glass glanced back at us and smirked. He said something to the girl sitting next to him. She laughed. The woman on stage continued. The International Hunter Coalition is proud to offer opportunities to those who might not otherwise have access to this level of training. We believe that talent can emerge from anywhere. And, bullshit. This was a PR stunt. I could see it in the way the guild-affiliated students weren't even pretending to pay attention anymore. With the rich kids in the front rows. With the guild heirs who'd been training their abilities since they could walk. With everyone except us. You may be seated. I took my seat and the chair creaked again. The welcome ceremony kept going with different speakers coming out. I tuned out most of what was being said because if I didn't lock an eye, I would be dead in 3 days. The system interface was still hovering at the edge of my consciousness, so I focused on a skill. Skills. Snake Eyes LV. Max active time for a little taste. My vision sharpened. Colors became more vivid. And suddenly, overlaid on every woman in my field of view, was a small tag displaying bust size. 32B, 34C, 36D, 30A. The measurements floated above their heads like nameplates in an MMO. Jesus Christ. This was insane. This was genuinely the most degenerate power system I'd ever encountered, and I'd read cultivation novels where the protagonist absorbed women's essence to level up. But it worked. I could see exactly who had what. And more than that, when I focused on someone for more than a second, I could feel something shift. A pull. Like invisible threads connecting me to them. The charm effect. So Snake Eyes didn't just identify measurements but made women notice me. I focused on a girl 3 rows ahead with red trim on her shoulders and brown hair that was pulled back in a ponytail. 34C. She shifted in her seat. Scratched her neck. Glanced back over her shoulder like she'd felt someone watching her. Our eyes met. She froze. I held her gaze. Didn't smile. Didn't look away. Her cheeks flushed. She turned back around quickly, shoulders hunched. It worked. Even in this body, this soft, overweight lottery winner body that had no business getting a second glance from anyone, the skill made them look. Okay, I muttered. Okay, I can work with this. The ceremony was blissfully winding down and someone made a comment about dorm assignments and orientation schedules. I had 71 hours and 48 minutes to live. I needed targets. I reactivated Snake Eyes and started scanning the crowd systematically, looking for women who were isolated, no friend group hovering around them, low status, lottery winners or low-tier guild affiliations, more likely to be receptive, high yield, the better their superpower, the better the milk probably. My gaze swept across the lottery section first. The skinny Asian girl 2 seats away, 32A. She was hunched over, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to disappear. 3 rows down. Latina girl, athletic build, 36C. She was staring at her phone with a bored expression. Further back. Black girl with box braids and glasses, 34B who was taking notes on the speech. None of them screamed easy target. But I had to start somewhere. The woman on stage finished her speech. Please collect your orientation packets from the tables at the south entrance. Your dorm assignments and class schedules are inside. Welcome to San Nicolas Academy. Dismissed. The stadium erupted into movement. 500 students standing, talking, heading toward the exits in clumps and groups. The guild sections moved together. Organized. Already divided into their social hierarchies. The lottery section scattered like roaches when the lights came on. I stood slowly, felt the weight in my legs, the tightness of the uniform. This body was wrong in every way that mattered. But I still had my mind, my experience, my knowledge of exactly how to read people and give them what they wanted. And I had a system that turned my biggest weakness, being a shameless piece of shit, into my only advantage. 71 hours. 45 minutes. The clock was ticking. I got lost 4 times finding the south entrance. Not metaphorically. Not turned the wrong way once lost. Genuinely, completely, embarrassingly lost in a venue that had about 6 signs pointing the same direction. The first time, I followed a cluster of Ruby students down a ramp that looped back to the upper amphitheater. I stood there for 30 seconds staring at the empty seats before accepting what had happened. The second time, I found a staircase that went down 1 level and deposited me directly in front of a maintenance closet. The sign on the door said electrical. I read it twice like it might change. The third time, I ended up at the north entrance somehow. I don't know how. I'm not proud of it. The fourth time, I followed a girl with a 36DD chest and forgot I was supposed to be navigating. She turned left into a bathroom. I kept walking and found the south entrance by accident. There it was. For long folding tables staffed by upperclassmen in academy uniforms, each table representing a house. Long lines in front of each one. Students collecting their orientation packets with the practiced efficiency of people who knew exactly where they were going and had probably reviewed the campus map 3 times already. People like that were insufferable. I joined the shortest line, which happened to be House Obsidian's table. The upperclassman running it was a broad-shouldered guy with a jaw like a brick and zero interest in being here. He had a clipboard and the expression of someone counting down the minutes to literally anywhere else. The line moved fast. These were mostly guild kids who already knew their assignments. My turn came. Name: Jace Monroe. He didn't look up, just scrolled down his tablet, finger moving through the list. Then it stopped. He looked up. The look wasn't hostile exactly. It was the specific look you give a parking ticket. Like, I'm not surprised this exists, but I'm definitely annoyed about it. Lottery, he said. Not a question. Yeah. He went back to the tablet. Tapped something. Scrolled. His expression did a thing where it got very careful and neutral in the way that people get when they're trying not to say the thing they're thinking. Monroe Jace. He pulled a thick envelope from the obsidian pile. Held it out. House Obsidian. Welcome. The words came out flat. Like 2 syllables away from, I'm sorry for your loss. I took the envelope. Building C, 5th floor, he added. Room 5E. He paused. Then, quieter, almost to himself, Obsidian. Good luck, man. He was already looking past me to the next person in line. I stepped away from the table and tore open the envelope. House Obsidian. Room 5E. Class schedule tucked behind a campus map that was going to be completely useless to me based on established evidence. A welcome letter from someone called Dominic Vale, homeroom instructor. I stared at the house assignment for a second. Obsidian. House Obsidian. Of course. I thought back to the novel. Tried to remember the important parts. Hunter Academy, America's Elite had been a solid enough story. Generic protagonist with a hidden overpowered ability. Lottery winner who shocked everyone. Standard underdog arc. The author had decent world-building instincts but wrote emotional scenes like a robot learning to cry from YouTube tutorials. But I remembered the houses. Sapphire was the prestige house. The champion house, where Katerina Volkov lived like royalty and ran everything with an iron fist wrapped in platinum hair and ice blue eyes that probably made lesser men forget their names. Ruby was chaos energy. Loud. Competitive. Good fights and better drama. Emerald was the nerd house. Smart kids who died in simulations because they overthought everything. Amber was... I almost groaned out loud. Amber was the chill house. The support house. The house where Dr. Vivian Cross was the homeroom teacher. I'd read her description in the novel and the author, for once, had not undersold anything. 34FF. Purple hair. That outfit she wore where the blazer was basically decorative. The character existed in the story mostly as background flavor, but the author had dedicated an entire paragraph to describing the way she crossed her legs during class like it was load-bearing plot information. It wasn't load-bearing plot information, but I would have appreciated being in her house for about 9 different system-related reasons. Instead, I got Obsidian, the Gryffindor of this world. If Gryffindor was split down the middle between the brave kids with something to prove and the legacy-obsessed sociopaths who'd push those kids into traffic if it helped their rankings. Half the house genuinely wanted to be the best hunters alive. The other half wanted to be the best because their families had been the best and anything less was a personal insult to 3 generations of combat achievement. The original protagonist, Javier Mendoza, had been sorted here, which meant this was where the story happened. The drama, the fights, the rivalries that defined the whole novel. Also, this was where Marcus Steele lived. The rank number 2 Elite 10 member who was all jaw and guild money, and an ability that amounted to, I built a room where I'm God. Come inside so I can demonstrate. And Dante Pope, rank number 10. The desperate first year clinging to his Elite 10 spot by his fingernails. And Bella Cortez, rank number 5, who the novel had described with the kind of detail usually reserved for religious iconography. I looked at my campus map. Building C. I looked around the south entrance area. There were 4 visible buildings from where I stood. None of them had letters on them. Or if they did, I couldn't see from here. Great. I picked a direction. Building C was behind the Apex Dining Hall, which was behind the Recreation Center, which was not in the direction I'd initially walked. Took me 11 minutes to find it. The Obsidian Residence Hall looked like every other building on campus from the outside. Glass, steel, clean modern lines. But someone had hung a banner above the entrance with the house insignia. Black raven on a purple crystal. The silver thread on the banner caught the afternoon sun. It was kind of a nice building. The lobby smelled like expensive cleaning product and low-grade institutional anxiety. A few students were already moving through, dragging bags, checking phones. Everyone had that same tightly controlled expression of people trying to project that they absolutely belonged here and were not at all terrified. I took the elevator to the 5th floor. Room 5E was at the end of the hall on the right. I used the code from my packet. The door clicked open. The apartment was bigger than I expected. I'd read the description in the novel. The academy provided good housing. But reading it and standing in 1,050 square feet of clean, modern living space were 2 different things. Big windows looking out at the Pacific. A kitchen with actual appliances. A couch that looked like it wouldn't destroy your lower back. 2 bedrooms. 2 bathrooms. No roommate yet. I dropped my duffel bag on the floor in the living room and walked to the window. The Pacific Ocean was out there. Big and gray-green in the afternoon light. I could see the edge of the mainland from here, just a dark line on the horizon. 14 miles of water between me and a world that had no idea this island existed. The system timer was visible in the corner of my vision. I'd learned to check it the same way you check a clock. Not obsessively, just regularly. 70 hours, 12 minutes, 3 days, give or take. To seduce a woman, to convince her to let me touch her, to extract essence and start banking points. In a body that currently looked like I'd spent the last year exclusively eating fast food and avoiding sunlight. I turned away from the window. The bedroom on the left had the better view. I took it. My future roommate could deal with it. Whoever they turned out to be. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my orientation packet again. Class schedule. Campus rules. A list of monthly evaluation dates. A single page labeled House Code of Conduct that I skimmed and immediately forgot. The map of the campus was printed on one side of a folded card. I studied it seriously this time because clearly I could not trust my own sense of direction to get me anywhere I needed to be. Academic buildings were in Zone 2. Residential was Zone 3. Dining and recreation in Zone 4. Snake Eyes was going to be most useful in Zone 4. The dining hall. High concentration of female students, casual environment, no urgent social context to navigate. I needed to get there soon. Start identifying targets. Start working. I had a system designed by something divine or deranged or both. I had a skill that made women look at me regardless of what I looked like. I had technique stats at C rank from a past life of knowing exactly what to do with my hands and my mouth and my general presence. What I didn't have was time to feel sorry about my current physical situation. I stood up, found the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror for the first time since waking up in that amphitheater seat. The face looking back at me was 18. Round. Softer than it should have been. Brown hair that needed a cut. Growing past my ears in a way that wasn't stylish, just neglected. Amber eyes, which was at least interesting. The kind of color that reads warm in sunlight. The body was what I expected. Soft in the middle. Broad but not muscled. The uniform shirt pulled across the stomach in a way that communicated wrong size to anyone paying attention. The system's limit breaker ability was theoretically fixing this. Sexual activity trained physical stats at 3x the rate of conventional methods, which meant every extraction session was also a workout. The problem was I needed to have an extraction session first. I looked at my own reflection for another few seconds. You've worked with worse, I told myself. I hadn't, actually, but the sentiment was useful. I splashed water on my face, fixed the collar of my uniform, and went back out into the hallway. The dining hall was a 15-minute walk that I completed in 22 minutes because I went the wrong way once. Just once. I was improving. But when I finally got there, I stopped in the entrance and actually appreciated the space for a second. 3 floors of glass and ocean view. The ceiling was high enough to make the whole room feel like standing inside something important. Chef stations along the back wall. The smell of actual food, not cafeteria food. Something with garlic and butter that immediately reminded me I hadn't eaten since before I died and woke up in someone else's body. The social geography was already establishing itself. Front by the windows, the guild kids. Clean uniforms. Easy posture. Tables full before the food was even out. Middle section. The general population. A mix of houses, affiliations, years. Near the kitchen, by the back wall, lottery admissions. Not explicitly assigned. But when everyone with family connections or guild backing was already moving toward the better spots, you ended up with the same segregation every single time, everywhere in the world. I activated Snake Eyes. The overlay came up immediately. Measurements floating above every woman in my field of view like a heads-up display in a video game designed by someone with very specific priorities. I scanned systematically, not desperately, like I was browsing a menu. 34C, 3rd year. Ruby trim. Already in conversation with 2 other students. Comfortable. Low priority. 32B, 1st year. Amber trim. Sitting alone, staring at her food. Interesting, but Amber was across campus. 38DD, 1st year. Obsidian trim. I stopped. She was sitting at a table near the edge of the lottery section. Light blue hair, which was distinctive enough to notice before Snake Eyes put up her measurement. Long, loose waves. A face that was made for getting whatever she wanted from whoever she was talking to. She had that particular bone structure where the features were arranged for maximum effect. Sharp brows. Full lips in a near pout. A tiny beauty mark below the corner of her right eye. The obsidian uniform on her was doing something genuinely illegal. The blazer buttons were managing their job by a margin. The micro skirt sat high on her waist and ended a distance above the knee that the dress code had strong opinions about. She was looking at her phone with a bored, beautiful expression while stabbing at a piece of fruit with her fork. Lottery section. Obsidian trim. 1st year. Same house as me. I checked my packet's class schedule against the name I remembered from the novel's cast. Belle Fox. Treasure sense ability. Bronze tier essence at best. Not the highest yield, but she qualified for the first extraction bonus. Double points. And she was in my house, which meant proximity. Regular access. She looked up from her phone and caught me looking. I held Snake Eyes active for 3 seconds. She looked back down. Then up again. A small furrow between her brows like she was trying to figure out something she couldn't quite name. Her cheeks were the faintest shade warmer than they'd been a second ago. The charm effect. Working in a body I actively found inconvenient. Still working. The system timer updated in the corner of my vision. 70 hours. 3 minutes. I walked to the food line. I had a dorm assignment, a house placement, and one potential target already looking at me from across a room without knowing why. Obsidian. The house where everything happened. Well, let it happen then. The food line moved fast. Good sign. The chef stations ran like they'd done this 1,000 times, which they probably had. I grabbed a tray and started down the line. The salad station had a market salad that looked like it was designed by someone who actually understood nutrition. Mixed greens, cherry tomatoes, cucumber, a handful of dried cranberries, spicy chicken breast sliced clean across the top. I added the granola instead of croutons because I'd spent enough years in my past life eating right to know that croutons were decorative at best. Low-fat balsamic vinaigrette on the side. Mixed fruit cup. The drink station had a row of branded bottles I didn't recognize. I picked one up. Blue. The label said Hunterade, Mana Recovery Formula, Electrolyte Blend, 350 milliliters. I stared at it for a second. It was blue Gatorade. This world had blue Gatorade and called it a Hunter sports drink. Heck, I grabbed 2. The tray was heavier than I expected. My arms registered the complaint immediately, which was a useful reminder that E-rank strength was not a metaphor. I carried it carefully across the dining hall and did another sweep with snake eyes while I walked. Belle Fox was still at the same table near the lottery section. Still on her phone. The fruit on her plate was half-eaten. Her free hand rested on the table next to a bottle of the same blue Hunterade I was holding, which I found unreasonably funny. I ran through the math one more time. Bronze tier essence. 10 points per mouthful, doubled to 20 on first extraction. 1 cup was 8 mouthfuls. First session bonus applied to every mouthful during the first session. So a full cup from Belle was 160 points. That was 1 day and 14 hours of life added to the clock. Not enough to solve the problem long term, but it was a start. A foundation. She was also in my house, which meant I'd be seeing her regularly whether I made a move now or not. Better to establish something early before social hierarchies got calcified and everyone decided who they were and weren't going to talk to. The other thing I remembered about Belle Fox from the novel was the money thing. She was a gold digger. Textbook, unapologetic, survival-grade gold digger. She'd grown up poor in rural Oregon, won the lottery slot, and arrived at this academy with one objective: attach herself to power and money and never be broke again. In the novel, the original protagonist had tried to talk to her in the first week and she'd shut him down in about 40 seconds flat because he was a lottery kid with zero resources and she was playing a completely different game. I was also a lottery kid with zero resources. Fuck it. I was already walking toward her table. She didn't look up when I stopped next to her. Anyone sitting here? She looked up from her phone then. Took me in from the tray to the face to the obsidian shoulder trim. Something shifted in her expression. Not warm exactly. More like a recalibration. You're in obsidian? Looks like it. She sat up slightly straighter. The blazer did something dramatic in response to this. I kept my eyes on her face with the focused intensity of a man who was absolutely not going to make this weird in the first 30 seconds. Jace Monroe. She considered me for another moment. The amber brown eyes were doing a little math I recognized. Lottery or guild? Worth talking to or not? Belle Fox. A pause. Nice to meet you. She went back to her phone. I sat down. She didn't tell me to leave, which was technically a win. I opened my balsamic vinaigrette and poured it over the salad and cut into the spicy chicken and started eating. It was good. Actually good. The chicken had a proper sear on it and the spice was real, not the cafeteria approximation of spice where someone waved a chili flake at the pan from a safe distance. Belle scrolled something on her phone. Her thumb moved fast, the way people do when they're not actually reading, just moving to have something to do with their hands. I drank some of the Hunterade. Tasted exactly like blue Gatorade. I decided to try again. So, lottery or guild? She didn't look up. Lottery. Same. Nothing. Her thumb kept scrolling. I ate another bite of chicken and looked out at the ocean through the wall of glass. The light was doing something good out there. That particular late afternoon gold that made the water look almost warm even though it definitely wasn't. Where are you from? I tried. Oregon. She answered before I finished the sentence, still looking at the phone. You? Not here. That got her to glance up for exactly 1 second. That's not an answer. I know. She went back to her phone. Okay, so this was how it was going to be. Belle Fox was here, she was technically talking to me, and she was also very clearly not interested in talking to me. Not because I'd done anything wrong. Just because I was a lottery kid with a food tray and no visible resources and she was running a cost-benefit analysis on every social interaction she had. I'd known girls like this in my past life. Not gold diggers specifically, but the underlying psychology was identical. Every conversation was an investment. They were always calculating return. The problem wasn't getting them to talk. The problem was making yourself look like a worthwhile place to put their time. The issue was that I had nothing to offer her right now. No money, no connections, no status. I hadn't acquired a single stolen ability yet. My physical stats were embarrassing. My charisma was E-rank, which the system had been very honest about and described as actively off-putting due to fat body penalty. Which, okay, that was just rude, but it was also accurate. Snake Eyes was the only real card I had. I looked at her. She was still looking at her phone, but she'd stopped scrolling. Her thumb was resting on the screen now, not moving. 3 seconds of sustained eye contact from my side, even without her looking back, was apparently enough to do something. Because she looked up, I let snake eyes run. The overlay confirmed 38 DD. Unranked. Current attraction from baseline, 8%. She looked at me with an expression that was 60% suspicious and 40% something she hadn't decided to acknowledge yet. The charm effect ran its numbers. 8% became 18%. Not much. Enough. What? She said. Nothing. Just eating. You were staring. I was thinking. About what? I speared a piece of mango from the fruit cup, wondering if the chicken here is always this good or if they put in extra effort for orientation day. She blinked. That wasn't what she'd expected. It's probably orientation day, she said. Schools always do that. Show you the best version of everything first. Makes sense. Lower the guard before they start charging you $12 for a granola bar. Something in her face shifted. She put her phone face down on the table. Not all the way engaged, but the phone was down. The vault is insane, she said. I looked at the prices earlier. A basic combat knife is 600 points. 600 points is 6 days of life if you're running the system currency. She looked at me differently then, just for a second, like she was recalculating something. You've already looked at the system stuff? I've been reading since the ceremony ended. Me too. She picked up her Hunterade and drank some of it and made a face. This tastes like blue Gatorade. I know. Why does it say mana recovery formula if it just tastes like Gatorade? Marketing. The hunter industry figured out that if you put mana recovery on the label, you can charge 4 times as much. She actually laughed at that. Short, quick, a little surprised. Like she hadn't planned on laughing. I filed that away. Belle Fox, gold digger, materialistic to the bone. Genuinely funny when she let herself be. The novel hadn't mentioned that part. The novel's version of her was a flat character who existed to provide the original Javier with a rejection scene, and then show up later as a minor antagonist. The actual person in front of me was more complicated than that. She was funny and she was strategic and she was running scared underneath all the careful presentation. Same as everyone else in this building. What's your ability? I asked. The openness closed up fast. Not dramatically. Just a small tightening around the eyes. Support type, she said. Not combat. Same general category as mine. She looked at me. What's yours? Also support. I drank some Hunterade. Non-combat oriented. We were both lying to each other and we both knew it and neither of us called it out, which felt like the most honest conversation I'd had all day. Support gets you killed in Obsidian, she said quietly. Only if you let them define your value by combat output. Easy to say. Is it? Belle picked up her phone again, but she put it back down almost immediately. Jace Monroe, she said, like she was testing the name. That's the one. What floor are you on? 5th. Her expression did something small. Me too. Room 5C. 5E. She looked at the window for a moment. I haven't met my roommate yet. Neither have I. Outside, the ocean was going dark at the edges where the light was pulling back toward the horizon. The dining hall was filling up fast around us. The noise level climbing as more students came in from the ceremony dispersal and found their social groups and settled into their respective sections of the room. The lottery tables near the kitchen were filling in. I could see 6, 7, 8 students from the orientation packet photos I'd memorized. All of them lottery. All of them doing that same low-key assessment of everyone around them, trying to figure out the social map before anyone else did. Belle was doing it too, I realized. Even while she was talking to me, her eyes moved around the room in quick, regular sweeps. Checking who was sitting with who. Checking which guild kids had the expensive uniform variations. Checking where the money was. It was almost impressive. You're cataloging, I said. She didn't deny it. So are you. I'm a little more obvious about it. Yeah. She almost smiled. You are. The timer in the corner of my vision updated. 69 hours. 47 minutes. I looked at Belle Fox across the table. Blue hair, full mouth, bronze tear essence, and a survival instinct sharp enough to cut glass. She wasn't going to be easy. She'd already done the math on me and decided I came up short on the balance sheet. But she was still sitting here. Phone face down. Talking. That was something. I wasn't here to play the original Jace Monroe story. That guy had come in without a plan and gotten rejected and stayed rejected and eventually faded into the background of someone else's protagonist arc. I had a system, a skill that was literally designed to manufacture attraction, and 69 hours of very specific motivation. I ate the last of my chicken and drank the rest of my Blue Hunterade and watched Belle Fox decide whether I was worth the investment of continued conversation. She picked up her phone, put it back down. "Is the chicken actually that good?" she said. "Or are you just really hungry?" "Both," I said. "But mostly the chicken." She pulled her half-eaten salad toward her and started eating properly for the first time since I'd sat down. Progress. I stabbed a tomato from the salad. "So, where in Oregon?" "Burns." She said it like she was daring me to not know where that was. I didn't, but I nodded anyway. "Small town. 4,000 people. Maybe." She pushed lettuce around her plate without eating it. "Middle of nowhere. You could drive an hour and not see another car." "Sounds peaceful." She laughed. Actually laughed this time, the kind that wasn't planned. "Peaceful is a nice word for boring as hell." I grinned. "Fair enough. What about you?" She looked at me directly. "Where'd you come from before this?" I took a drink of the second Hunterade and considered my answer. The truth was complicated and involved a transmigration I couldn't explain. The lie needed to be simple. "Couple places," I said. "Moved around a lot. Military family?" "Something like that." She waited for more. I didn't give it. "You're good at that," she said. "Good at what?" "Answering questions without actually answering them." I ate the tomato. "Learned from the best." "Who?" "You." She blinked. Then she actually smiled, which changed her entire face from calculated to genuinely pretty. Touché. The dining hall was getting louder. More students flooding in from wherever orientation packets had sent them after the ceremony. The guild tables were filling up with second and third years showing the first years how things worked. The Ruby section was already loud as hell. I could hear someone laughing from 3 tables over. Obsidian's section was quieter, more controlled. People at those tables sat with better posture and talked at reasonable volumes like they were already being evaluated. Belle noticed me looking. "Obsidian's weird," she said. "Yeah. I read about the houses before coming here. The forums online, student reviews, all that." She leaned forward slightly. The blazer pulled tighter across her chest. I kept my eyes on her face through sheer willpower and the knowledge that getting caught staring 30 seconds into a productive conversation would be the dumbest thing I'd done today. "What did the forums say?" "Obsidian used to be the best house. Won everything. Then something happened last year and now they're desperate." I already knew this from the novel. The gate incident. 2 third years dead. For second years permanently injured. Obsidian's reputation shattered in one training exercise gone catastrophically wrong. Marcus Steele's predecessor as rank number 2 had made a tactical error chasing personal glory instead of following protocol. He'd led his team deeper into a live C-rank gate than authorized. The gate breached. The fallout was bad enough that the IHC investigated and shut down house activities for 2 weeks. Obsidian had lost the championship to Sapphire for the first time in 12 years. The house was still recovering. "They're going to expect a lot from us," Belle said quietly. "The third years. They want to win the championship back. And we're lottery kids." Exactly. She wasn't wrong. Obsidian house culture was brutal on a good day. Post-incident Obsidian house culture was going to be a special kind of hell for anyone who didn't perform immediately. I ate another bite of chicken and decided to change the subject before Belle got too deep in her own anxiety spiral. "This school is wild," I said. "I got lost 6 times already. I need a guide or something. These maps are confusing as hell." Belle stared at me. Just stared. 6 times. "Yeah. How?" "I don't know. I followed the signs." The signs lied. She was doing this thing where her mouth was open but no sound was coming out. Like I'd just told her I'd never heard of oxygen. The signs don't lie, she finally said. They're directional markers. They pointed me to a maintenance closet. That's not possible. It happened. You must have misread them. Belle. I followed a group of Ruby students down a ramp that looped back to the amphitheater. I went into a hallway marked south entrance and came out at the north entrance. I discovered this dining hall by accident while following someone to the bathroom. She was looking at me like I'd grown a second head. Are you serious right now? Completely. You mean you need something other than the interactive map on your phone that shows you where you are and what's surrounding you? I blinked. The what? Belle pulled out her phone, tapped the screen twice, turned it toward me. There was a map, a live map, with a blue dot labeled Belle Fox, current location sitting right in the middle of Zone 4, Dining Hall, Table 14. The entire campus was laid out in clean lines and labeled zones. Buildings were highlighted in different colors by function. I could see the residence halls in Zone 3, the academic sector in Zone 2, the restricted areas in Zone 5 grayed out with access denied overlays. It was perfect. It was exactly what I needed. I looked at her phone, then at her face, then back at the phone. That's a thing. You didn't set up your Academy app? What Academy app? Belle's expression went from confused to something approaching genuine concern. The app they sent you the download link for. In your orientation packet. I thought back to the orientation packet. The thick envelope the upperclassmen had handed me at the registration table. I'd read the house assignment, the room code, the welcome letter from Dominic Vale. I hadn't read the last 3 pages. I might have missed that part, I said. How do you miss the app download instructions? I was distracted. By what? The death timer. Belle's eyes went wide. What? Nothing. Forget I said that. You said death timer. I said I was distracted by the dining hall timer. For food service hours. She did not look convinced. I pulled out my phone before she could ask more questions. Can you send me the link? Belle looked at me for a long moment. Fine. Give me your number. Message from Belle Fox. Academy app download. I opened the link. The App Store page loaded. San Nicolas Academy, official student portal. 4.2 stars, 847 reviews. I hit download and watched the progress bar fill. Thank you, I said. You're welcome. She was still looking at me like I was a fascinating disaster. How did you survive this long without the app? Resourcefulness. You got lost 6 times. I found my way eventually. By accident. Still counts. The app finished downloading. I opened it and the login screen came up asking for my student ID number and birth date. I found both on the orientation packet and typed them in. The interface loaded. Holy shit. It was everything. Class schedules automatically synced to a calendar. Building maps with real-time navigation. A meal plan tracker. A point balance display showing my current total at 0. A messaging system for student-to-student communication. A simulation chamber reservation portal. There was even a section labeled monthly evaluation rankings that was currently grayed out with available after first evaluation written across it. This is incredible, I said. It's basic student infrastructure. Belle had gone back to eating her salad. Every school has something like this. Not where I'm from. Where are you from that doesn't have student apps? Nowhere worth talking about. She gave me that look again. The one that said she knew I was being evasive and she was deciding whether or not to care. I opened the map feature. The blue dot appeared. Jace Monroe, current location. Zone 4, Dining Hall, Table 14, right next to where Belle's dot had been on her screen. I zoomed out. The whole campus spread across my phone screen in perfect detail. I could see everything. The residence halls, the academic buildings, the simulation complex, the restricted zones at the north end of the island. There was even a legend in the corner explaining what all the different colored zones meant. This is going to change my entire experience here, I said. Belle snorted. Dramatic much? You don't understand. I have a terrible sense of direction. Clearly, this app is going to save my life. She rolled her eyes, but she was smiling a little. You're welcome for showing you something you should have known about 6 hours ago. I owe you. You do. I zoomed in on Zone 3 and found Building C. 5th floor. I could see my room marked as 5E. Belle's room was 4 doors down at 5C. The entire floor plan was visible if I tapped the building. 2 master bedrooms per apartment. Shared living space. Kitchen. Bathrooms. What's your schedule look like? I asked. Belle pulled up her app and tapped through to the calendar view. Hunter Theory at 8. Physical Conditioning at 10. Mana Control at 1. Guild Economics at 3. Same first 2, I said. I checked my own schedule. I've got Dungeon Ecology instead of Guild Economics. Lucky. I hate economics. Then why'd you pick it? I didn't pick it. The system assigned it based on my ability classification. That tracked. Support-type abilities got funneled into economics and logistics courses because the academy assumed anyone without combat potential would end up in administrative roles at guilds. You could petition to change it, I said. To what? Something you'd actually want to take. Belle looked at me like I'd suggested she could fly. Lottery students don't petition for schedule changes. Why not? Because it draws attention, and attention means scrutiny. And scrutiny means they look harder at whether you deserve to be here. She said it matter-of-factly, like this was obvious, like she'd already run the cost-benefit analysis and decided that suffering through a class she hated was worth avoiding the risk of administrative review. The survival instinct again. I got it. I didn't agree with it, but I got it. Fair enough, I said. She finished her salad and pushed the plate aside, checked her phone, put it down, picked it up again. Nervous habit. You have somewhere to be? I asked. No, just orientation is technically still happening until 6. There's a house meeting in the common room at 7. I checked the time on my phone. 5:47 p.m. We should probably head back soon then, I said. Yeah. Neither of us moved. The dining hall was at capacity now. Every table full. The noise level had gone from loud to actually overwhelming. Someone dropped a tray 2 tables over and the crash made half the room turn and look. Belle flinched at the sound. I stood up and grabbed my tray. Come on. I'll walk with you. She looked surprised. You don't have to. I know. But I have the app now and I want to test it. That got a small laugh. She stood and picked up her own tray and we walked to the dish return station near the kitchen entrance. The walk back to Building C took 8 minutes according to the app's navigation. I didn't get lost once. Belle noticed. See? She said. Not complicated. It's literally pointing me exactly where to go. That's different from reading signs. Signs also point you exactly where to go. Agree to disagree. We reached Building C and took the elevator to the 5th floor. The hallway was empty. Most students were probably still at dinner or exploring campus or doing whatever first-day orientation activities involved. Belle stopped at her door. 5C. I stopped at mine. 5E. She looked at me for a second, like she was deciding something. Thanks for sitting with me, she said. Thanks for showing me the app. You really would have just wandered around lost all semester, wouldn't you? Probably. She shook her head, but she was smiling. Good luck with your roommate. You too. She went into her room and the door clicked shut behind her. I stood in the hallway for a moment. Timer in the corner of my vision updating. 69 hours. 14 minutes. I'd spent 33 minutes with Belle Fox and accomplished exactly what I needed to accomplish. Established contact. Started building rapport. Made her laugh twice. Got her to smile multiple times. The charm effect from Snake Eyes was cumulative. Every interaction built on the last. 18% attraction wasn't enough to get me an extraction session. But it was a foundation. I'd see her at Hunter Theory tomorrow morning at 8. I'd see her at physical conditioning at 10. I'd see her in the hallway at meals, in the common room during house meetings. Proximity was half the game. I unlocked my door and went inside. The apartment was still empty. No roommate yet. I walked to the window and looked out at the ocean again. The sun was lower now. The light was doing something orange and gold across the water. Somewhere on this island there were women with silver tier essence, gold tier essence, abilities worth stealing, stats worth training against. But I had to start somewhere. The divine milking system was degenerate as hell, and I hated everything about how it worked. But it worked. I pulled out my phone and opened the Academy app. Checked the map. Checked my schedule. Checked the meal plan balance. Then I opened the messaging system, clicked on the top selection of Belfox. I typed, "Thanks again for the app, you saved me from a semester of getting lost and accidentally ending up in janitorial closets." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Belfox, you're welcome. Try not to die before classes start." I grinned. "Jace Monroe, no promises." The dots appeared one more time, then stopped. I put my phone down and sat on the couch and looked around the apartment that was supposed to be home for the next year. Clean, modern, comfortable. A prison disguised as luxury housing on an island I couldn't leave without permission. 69 hours left before the system killed me. I had a target. I had a plan. I had an app that would prevent me from getting catastrophically lost. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I heard the door open at 6:42 p.m. I was lying on my bed scrolling through the Academy app, specifically the section labeled Student Directory that let you look up anyone in your house if you knew their name. Useful for stalking. Less useful when you didn't know who you were looking for yet. The sound of the lock disengaging made me sit up. Roommate time. I got off the bed and walked out into the living area just as the door swung open. The person who walked in made me stop breathing for about 3 full seconds. Holy shit. Androgynous didn't begin to cover it. This person looked like someone had taken the concept of beautiful and sharpened it until it could cut. Chin-length black hair. Sharp features. High cheekbones. A jawline that could have belonged to either gender depending on the lighting. And the eyes. Red. Actually red. Not brown with reddish tones. Not hazel. Bright, vivid, arterial red that looked like someone had photoshopped the irises in post. The uniform fit perfectly. Tailored blazer. Crisp shirt buttoned all the way to the collar. Black tie with the obsidian trim. Everything about the presentation screamed control. The person looked at me. I looked back. "You're my roommate," the person said. The voice was low, quiet, carefully neutral in a way that felt practiced. Male then, except, my brain made the connection in about half a second and I had to physically resist the urge to smile. Hikaru Tanaka, the character from the novel. The one with the secret. The one who was actually a girl pretending to be a guy to escape an arranged marriage back in Japan and claim her birthright from a family that didn't think women could inherit. The one who in the original story eventually gets found out by Javier, the main character, and slowly becomes comfortable enough in her own skin that she drops the act and reveals a body that the novel described in absolutely obscene detail across multiple chapters. Top 5 sexiest bodies in the entire story. 36E bust that she bound flat every single day with compression bandages. I was looking at a lottery ticket and a death trap at the same time. Because her ability was Phantom Edge. Invisible cutting force. Silent. Instant. Deadly. She could bisect me before I finished a sentence if I fucked this up. "Yeah," I said. "Jace Monroe." Hikaru walked further into the room and set down a single black duffel bag by the couch. Everything about the movement was economical. No wasted motion. "Hikaru Tanaka." "Cool. Which room do you want?" "The one you didn't take." "Fair." Hikaru walked past me toward the bedrooms. Looked into the one I'd claimed. Then walked to the other one and disappeared inside. The door shut. Not slammed. Just shut. Quietly. With finality. I stood in the living room processing. Okay. First, jackpot. Absolute jackpot. This was the kind of lucky break that didn't happen in real life. Second, extremely dangerous jackpot. Hikaru hated men. The novel made that very clear. Years of being dismissed and controlled by her grandfather and male cousins had left her with exactly zero patience for anything that smelled like masculine bullshit. Third, I had 68 hours left to live, and my roommate was secretly a gold-tier extraction target with one of the best abilities in the entire academy. But she thought I was just some random lottery kid, and she clearly wanted nothing to do with me, which was fine. I didn't need her to like me. I just needed proximity. I walked back to my room and shut my own door, sat on the bed, pulled up the system interface. Snake Eyes worked on everyone. Gender didn't matter for the identification part. The charm effect only triggered on people who could be attracted to me, but the information display was universal. If I made eye contact with Hikaru, I'd see the measurements, which would confirm what I already knew. But I couldn't do it yet. Too obvious. Too soon. She just walked in the door and she was already radiating fuck-off energy so intense it was practically visible. Pushing now would be stupid. I checked the time. 6:48 p.m. House meeting at 7. I opened my phone and scrolled through the student directory again. Typed in Hikaru Tanaka. The profile came up. Year, first house. Obsidian ability classification. Offensive nationality. Japan emergency contact. Redacted. That was it. Bare minimum information. No social media links. No profile picture beyond the default academy logo. Ghost mode. Smart. If you were trying to disappear from a powerful family, you didn't leave a digital trail. I put my phone down and looked at the door to my room, then at the wall that separated my space from Hikaru's. Somewhere on the other side of that wall was a girl who'd cut her hair, stolen documents, forged identification, and crossed an ocean to escape an arranged marriage. A girl who trained harder than everyone, who was better than her male cousins, who got told it didn't matter because tradition said women couldn't lead. A girl who was now trapped in a performance she couldn't drop for 3 years because getting caught meant expulsion and deportation and a life she'd already rejected once. I understood that. Not the gender thing, but the performance. The lie you had to maintain because the truth would destroy you. I was doing the same thing, just with a death timer and a system that required me to convince women to let me drink from their tits. We were both fucked, just in different ways. I heard movement from the other room. Footsteps. A door opening and closing. The bathroom, probably. The apartment had 2 bathrooms. One attached to each bedroom. Hikaru wouldn't have to worry about me walking in on anything. Good for her. Bad for me. Because that meant fewer opportunities for accidental discovery. I checked the time again. 6:53 p.m. I got up and walked out into the living area. Grabbed a glass from the kitchen and filled it with water from the tap. Drank it. Refilled it. The door to Hikaru's room opened. She walked out. Still in uniform. Still perfectly composed. Hair still immaculate. She looked at me. I looked at her. House meeting starts in 7 minutes. I said. I know. You going? Yes. Cool. I'll walk down with you. Her eyes narrowed. You don't need to. I know. But I don't know where the common room is yet, and I'd rather not get lost again. There are signs. I'm bad with signs. She stared at me for a long moment, like she was trying to figure out if I was serious or if this was some kind of play. I kept my expression neutral. Finally, she turned toward the door. Fine. Let's go. I put the glass down and followed her out. The hallway was full now. Students emerging from rooms. Voices. Movement. The nervous energy of people who didn't know each other yet but were about to be stuck together for a year. Hikaru walked fast. I kept pace. She didn't say anything. I didn't push. We took the stairs instead of the elevator. Down 5 flights. My thighs burned by the 3rd floor, but I didn't slow down and I definitely didn't complain. Hikaru moved like someone who'd trained their entire life. Meanwhile, I was in the body of someone who'd spent the last year eating badly and skipping the gym. The difference was obvious. We reached the ground floor and Hikaru pushed through the stairwell door into the lobby. Turned left without hesitation. I followed. The common room was exactly where the app said it would be. Large space. Modular furniture. Big windows. Already half full of students standing in clusters or sitting on couches. Hikaru walked to the far corner near the windows and stood with her back to the wall. I stayed near the middle. Gave her space. She noticed. Her eyes tracked me for a second. Then she looked away and pulled out her phone. I did the same. Opened the group chat Belle had added me to earlier. Obsidian first years. Most of them had already changed their display names to nicknames or left them as default. Belle Fox, is anyone else nervous or is it just me unknown number? You're not alone unknown number. I threw up twice today Belle Fox. Oh good, I'm not the only one Jordan Wayne. We're all nervous. It's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine. Belle Fox. You sound very convincing Jordan Wayne. I'm trying I smiled at my phone. The room kept filling. More first years. A few second years. One third year who walked in and immediately commanded attention just by existing. Broad shoulders. Confident posture. I didn't recognize him. He walked to the front of the room and stood there waiting. At exactly 7 p.m. he cleared his throat. The room went quiet. Welcome to House Obsidian, he said. His voice carried without him having to shout. I'm Alexander Shepard, third year, your house coordinator for this semester. He paused, looked around the room, made eye contact with different people. You're here because the sorting system decided you have ambition, talent, drive, whatever. I don't care why you're here. I care about what you do now that you are. He started pacing, slow, deliberate. Obsidian used to be the best house at this academy. We won 12 consecutive championships. We produced more elite 10 members than anyone. We set the standard. Another pause. Last year we lost. For the first time in over a decade we lost. And we didn't just lose. We fucked up so badly that people died and the IHC investigated us and we became a joke. The room stayed silent. This year we're fixing that, Alexander said. This year we're taking back what's ours. And every single one of you is going to help us do it whether you like it or not. He stopped pacing and looked directly at the first year section. You're the lowest priority in this house. You don't have rankings yet. You don't have proven ability. You're question marks. But question marks can become assets or they can become dead weight. Your job for the next 4 weeks is to prove which one you are. He let that sink in. First monthly evaluation is September 28th. For weeks from today, you'll be ranked based on combat performance, academic scores, and contribution to house activities. Top performers get resources, training time, equipment access, mentorship. Bottom performers get nothing. And if you're at the very bottom, he smiled. It wasn't friendly. You get transferred to Amber. A few people laughed nervously. I didn't. I was watching Hikaru. She hadn't moved, hadn't reacted, just stood there with her phone in her hand looking at Alexander with an expression that gave away absolutely nothing. Questions? Alexander asked. No one raised their hand. Good. Homeroom assignments are in your orientation packets. You'll meet your instructors tomorrow. Don't be late. Don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass this house. He turned and walked out. The room stayed quiet for about 5 seconds. Then everyone started talking at once. I looked at Hikaru again. She was already heading for the door. I let her go. Pushed through the crowd toward where Belle was standing with 2 other lottery kids I didn't recognize. That was terrifying, Belle said when I got close. That was standard intimidation tactics. Still terrifying. You'll be fine. How do you know? Because you're smart and you're not going to do anything stupid. She looked at me. You sound very confident for someone who got lost 6 times today. 7 times. I got lost on the way here too. That got a laugh from one of the other lottery kids. A guy with glasses and dark skin. How? He asked. Took a wrong turn. There's an app. I just downloaded it 3 hours ago. He stared at me. You've been here since this morning and you just downloaded the app 3 hours ago? Correct. How are you alive? Stubbornness mostly. Belle introduced the guy as Marcus. Not Marcus Steele. Different Marcus. This one was from Atlanta and his ability let him turn invisible when holding his breath. Useful. The other one was a girl named Naomi who could make waveforms or something. Less useful. But everyone started somewhere. We talked for another 20 minutes. Exchanged numbers. Made plans to sit together at breakfast tomorrow before Hunter Theory. I watched Hikaru leave at some point during the conversation. She didn't look back. When I finally got back to the apartment at 7:47 p.m., the door to her room was closed. No light visible underneath. Either she was asleep or she was sitting in the dark. I went to my own room and shut the door. Sat on the bed. Pulled up the system. 67 hours. 41 minutes. I had a gold-tier extraction target living 4 meters away from me. A target who hated men. A target who could kill me in my sleep if I made the wrong move. A target I absolutely could not approach directly. I opened my phone and scrolled through the student directory one more time. Looked at Hikaru's profile. Offensive ability classification. Japanese national. First year. Same schedule as me for at least 2 classes. I closed the app and stared at the ceiling. This was going to require patience, strategy, perfect timing, and a lot of luck. But if I pulled it off, gold tier essence, 100 points on first extraction, an ability worth stealing, a body that would make the entire investment worthwhile. I smiled in the dark. Jackpot. The alarm went off at 5 a.m. and I was already awake. Hadn't slept much. The countdown timer does that to you. Hard to drift off peacefully when the number in the corner of your vision keeps ticking down like a bomb nobody else can see. 67 hours. 12 minutes. I lay there for about 30 seconds staring at the ceiling. Then I got up. The gym clothes in my duffel bag were technically the previous Jace's. Gray sweatpants, a black t-shirt that was tight in the stomach and loose everywhere else, and a pair of beat-up running shoes that had seen better years. I put them on in the dark, drank 2 glasses of water from the kitchen tap, and checked the Academy app for the rec center hours. Open 24 hours. Perfect. Hikaru's room was dark under the door. I left the apartment without making noise. The recreation center sat in Zone 4 between the dining hall and the library. According to the app, it was a 7-minute walk from Building C. I made it in 10 because I took one wrong turn near the memorial garden before the app corrected me. I was getting better. The rec center lobby was empty except for a student worker at the front desk who was asleep in his chair with his chin on his chest. I scanned my ID card on the reader, pushed through the turnstile, and followed the signs to the main gym floor. The weight room was large, clean, and smelled like rubber flooring and industrial cleaner. 48 students capacity based on the sign by the door. For people inside at 5:10 a.m. 2 third years on the bench press talking quietly. 1 second year doing pull-ups in the corner. And Hikaru Tanaka on the cable machine with her back to the door, working through rows with the kind of form you only get from years of somebody correcting you every single rep. I'd half expected her to be here. The novel mentioned she trained early specifically to avoid crowds. Quiet hours. Minimal interaction. Controlled environment. Hikaru was someone who optimized everything, including the time of day she chose to exist in spaces other people used. I walked to the free weights section on the opposite side of the room. Did not look at her. This was important. The absolute worst thing I could do right now was make her feel watched. Hikaru noticed everything. She would catalog the fact that I'd shown up at the same time she did, file it somewhere in that razor-sharp head of hers, and upgrade her threat assessment of me from 0 to active concern. I needed her to see me as background noise. Harmless. Pathetic even. The fat lottery kid who woke up early to embarrass himself with weights. Let her think that. I found an open stretch of floor near the dumbbells and looked at the rack. Then I looked at myself in the mirror on the wall. Let me be honest with you about what I saw. It was not inspiring. The gray sweatpants were doing their best. The black shirt had given up around the stomach area. My face was round and soft and had the specific look of someone who'd spent the last year treating food as entertainment. I was 5'9" and carrying weight in all the places that made movement inefficient. My arms had no definition. My chest was soft. My neck was thicker than it should have been. This was the body I'd inherited. And somewhere inside this body, according to the divine milking system and its frankly deranged documentation, was an ability called Limit Breaker that removed all genetic caps on physical growth and made sexual activity count as training at 3 times the normal rate. Training at 3 times the normal rate. I looked at the dumbbell rack. I looked at myself in the mirror. Then I pulled up the system in the corner of my vision. Strength E, 1 segment out of 10. Endurance E, 2 segments. Agility E, 1 segment. There it was. The full picture. A complete disaster wrapped in a black t-shirt. But here's the thing about progression systems. In every web novel I'd ever read, the most satisfying chapters were always the training montages. The grinding. The slow accumulation of segments on a bar. The moment the number clicked over and a notification popped up and something that used to hurt didn't hurt anymore. I'd spent years mocking those chapters for being power fantasies with no grounding in reality. Now I lived in one. So, let's find out how this actually works. I grabbed a 15-pound dumbbell from the rack. And I started. I did not know how to lift properly. That's a lie. The previous Jace Monroe didn't know how to lift properly. The person currently operating his body had 5 years of gym experience from a past life where staying in shape was a point of personal pride. I knew form. I knew which movements built what. I understood progressive overload and recovery windows and why most beginners failed. What I didn't know was how this specific body would respond. The first set of bicep curls confirmed my worst fears. 15 pounds felt heavier than it should have. My arms shook on rep 8. My grip was weak. The stabilizer muscles that normally handle the secondary movement of a curl were basically non-existent. Starting from 0, I switched to goblet squats. Body weight first, no weight added, just to see how the legs handled basic movement. Badly. My knees ached by rep 5. My hip flexors were tight. My balance was off because the weight distribution was wrong for the body I was used to inhabiting. I kept going anyway. The 2/3 years on the bench finished up and left without acknowledging me. The second year doing pull-ups glanced over once, assessed me as not worth thinking about, and looked away. Hikaru didn't look at all. I kept working. After 40 minutes of rotating through basic movements, I pulled up the system again. Strength E. Still 1 segment. Endurance E. Still 2 segments. I stared at the numbers. That's it. I said it out loud by accident. Quiet enough that no one heard. But still. Then I thought about it properly. 40 minutes of beginner-level resistance training in a body that had been sedentary for most of a year. What was I expecting? A rank-up notification and a dramatic music sting? This wasn't a video game. Limit Breaker removed the caps. It didn't remove the actual work required to reach them. I needed to recalibrate my expectations. More importantly, I needed data. If I was going to turn this body into something functional, I needed to understand the rate of change. How many segments per session? How many sessions per rank? Whether certain exercises moved certain stats faster. Whether the 3x multiplier from sexual activity stacked with conventional training or replaced it. 100 questions I couldn't answer yet. But I could start collecting information. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. Started logging what I'd done. Goblet squats, 3 sets, 12 reps, body weight. Dumbbell curls, 3 sets, 8 reps, 15 pounds. Dumbbell rows, 3 sets, 10 reps, 20 pounds. Walking lunges across the floor, 2 lengths. I noted my current stats before and after. No change yet. Tomorrow I'd check again after another session and see if the numbers had moved. If 1 session didn't move the bar, maybe 2 did. Maybe 5. Maybe the system updated in chunks rather than real time. I needed to treat this like an experiment, which meant consistent variables. Same time, same routine, same duration. Track everything. I added a note at the bottom. Check stats immediately post-session. Check again 2 hours later. Check again before bed. Record any changes. Gamify it. That was the word. Gamify the entire process. Because if I could figure out the exact conversion rate, I could optimize the training schedule around the extraction sessions. Stack the multipliers. Run the numbers on how fast I could move from E rank physical stats to D rank, then C, then B. I put my phone away. Grabbed the 25-pound dumbbells. Started another set of rows. My back burned by rep 6. I finished the set. Hikaru finished her cable work and moved to the pull-up bar. I tracked this in the mirror without turning my head. She reached up and took the bar with a neutral grip and did 12 pull-ups without breaking rhythm. Clean movement. Full range. No kipping. The kind of reps that look easy from the outside and aren't. Then she dropped, shook out her hands, and went again. She was wearing a black long-sleeve hoodie and dark gray training shorts that hit just above the knee. Her hair was tied back. The same red eyes from last night, now sharp and focused on nothing in particular on the wall in front of her. Hikaru's baseline attraction rating was something I hadn't checked yet. My charisma stat was at E rank 2 segments. Snake eyes had a charm effect that scaled with existing interest. If Hikaru had zero interest in men, which according to the novel was a reasonable assumption, the charm effect would be working with nothing. Building from absolute zero. That took time, which was fine, because I had a plan. Not a fully formed plan, more like the skeleton of a plan. What Hikaru needed, underneath all the armor, was someone who treated her the same way regardless of context. Treat her like a person who occupied the same space. Acknowledge her when it would be strange not to. Leave her alone when she wanted to be left alone. Show up to the gym at the same time not because she was here but because this was when the gym wasn't crowded. Let her build the mental model of me as harmless. Then patient. Then maybe 3 weeks from now interesting. Then useful. Then something worth looking at twice. It was a long game. Too long for my 67-hour deadline, obviously. Hikaru was not my survival target. She was my long-term investment. The foundation of something bigger once I wasn't running on a countdown. For right now, she was an ambient presence I needed to not scare off. I did another set of lunges. My left knee complained loudly on rep 9. I finished the rep anyway and stood up. Hikaru dropped from the pull-up bar, rolled her shoulders and pulled out her phone. Checked something. Put it away. Then she looked up and our eyes met in the mirror. I held it for exactly 1 second. Looked away first. Went back to my dumbbell rack. That was it. That was the entire interaction. 1 second of eye contact in a gym mirror at 5:40 in the morning, followed by me going back to my embarrassing beginner workout like nothing happened. Perfect. No snake eyes. Not this time. Too obvious. Too early. The ability required sustained eye contact to trigger, and 1 second in a mirror was not that. Today was not about extraction. Today was about being seen without being a threat. There's a difference between invisible and harmless. Invisible means she doesn't see you. Harmless means she sees you and decides you don't matter. I needed harmless. I went back to the cable machine after she moved away from it. Started working through lat pull-downs at a weight that was genuinely humble. Checked the system stats again at 6:05 a.m. Strength E, 1 segment. Endurance E, 2 segments. Actually, 2.5. The second segment had a partial fill that hadn't been there at the start. I looked at it. The progress was tiny, almost meaningless. Half a segment on endurance after an hour of work. But it was there. It moved. The bar actually moved. Something in my chest did a thing I wasn't going to call excitement because that would be embarrassing, but it was adjacent to excitement. The very specific satisfaction of confirming a hypothesis. The system responded to training. Not fast. Not dramatically. But it responded. Which meant it was a game. A very slow game with very real stakes and a body that was starting from the absolute floor, but a game with rules I could learn. I started calculating. Half a segment per hour of training. 10 segments per rank. 20 hours to rank up endurance from E to D at this rate. That was before the sexual training multiplier. 1 hour of extraction activity counted as 3 hours of conventional training. So theoretically, a successful extraction session could move the bar 1.5 segments instead of half. Belle Fox. Bronze tier. She wasn't going to break any records but 160 points on first extraction and a session that could chip away at my stats simultaneously. I needed to move on her today. I left the gym at 6:15, took a shower that involved discovering my shampoo was 3-in-1 and smelled like generic sport. Then put on the obsidian uniform again. The blazer still pulled at my stomach. The pants still felt like they were designed for someone with different proportions entirely. I had time for breakfast before Hunter Theory at 8. The dining hall at 6:45 was a different beast than dinner. Quieter, less crowded. Students who either needed early caffeine or were trying to establish routines they'd abandoned by week 2. The same glass walls and ocean view, but the morning light made everything look cleaner, newer, more optimistic. The breakfast setup was buffet style. Scrambled eggs, bacon, sausage, pancakes, waffles, oatmeal, yogurt, granola, fresh fruit, toast. Coffee machines with enough settings to justify a manual. Juice dispensers. A waffle iron station where you could DIY if you hated efficiency. And it was free. Well, not free. Subsidized by the academy until after the first monthly evaluation, when we'd all get ranked and assigned point values that determined our meal plans going forward. The whole system was designed to enforce a meritocracy from day one. Rich kids and lottery winners both started at 0 points. Everyone ate the same food, used the same facilities, had access to the same simulation chambers. In theory, anyway. In practice, the guild kids still had better uniforms, better equipment in their dorm rooms, and family connections that mattered more than any point system. But for breakfast? Yeah. We were all eating the same scrambled eggs. I grabbed a plate and loaded it with protein. 4 strips of bacon, 2 sausage links, scrambled eggs, and a banana because I should probably eat something with vitamins. Then coffee. Black. Hot enough to hurt. I scanned the dining hall while waiting for the coffee to finish brewing. Found them near the windows. Belle, Naomi, and Mark, sitting at a table with their trays, already mid-conversation. Belle was laughing at something Mark said. Naomi was picking at her food with the kind of nervous energy that suggested she hadn't slept well. I grabbed my coffee and started walking toward them. Then someone stepped directly into my path. I stopped. Didn't spill the coffee, which was a minor miracle considering how full the cup was. The guy who'd walked into me was shorter than me by a couple inches. Maybe 5'7", with messy dark brown hair that looked like he'd forgotten to brush it, and wide expressive eyes that currently looked horrified. "My bad," I said automatically. The guy looked up at me, blinked, started to apologize in rapid-fire Spanish-accented English about not watching where he was going, how clumsy he was, how he should have been paying attention. I tuned out the apology halfway through the second sentence. Because I recognized him. Javier Mendoza. Shonen protagonist energy wrapped in a first-year's body. The kind of kid who'd cry after inspirational speeches and train until his hands bled and somehow, against all odds, end up saving the day through sheer refusing to give up stubbornness. The original main character of this stupid novel. The one who was supposed to stumble his way into friendships, rivalries, romantic complications, and eventually graduate as someone important enough to matter. Javier had a massive toe, and I was about to step all over it. Not maliciously, just practically. Because the women he was supposed to build relationships with over the next 3 years, I needed them in the next 3 days. Belle, Naomi, maybe even Blair Davenport if I got desperate enough. The entire cast of female characters who were supposed to orbit Javier's earnest underdog arc was now my potential survival pool. There was no version of this where I didn't take something from him, which, morally speaking, probably made me an asshole. But morally speaking, I also had a little over 2 days to live unless I convinced women to let me drink from their bodies, so my moral compass was already pointing in some fucked up direction. "It's fine," I said, cutting off Javier's apology. "Happens." Javier's face did the thing where relief and gratitude mixed together into something almost painful to watch. He nodded enthusiastically, wished me a good breakfast, and hurried off toward the food line with his notebook tucked under one arm. I watched him go, then walk to the table where Belle, Naomi, and Mark were sitting. "Morning," I said. Belle looked up first. She'd pulled her light blue hair into a high ponytail this morning, which somehow made the asymmetric bangs frame her face even better. The obsidian uniform on her was borderline obscene. Not because she'd modified it exactly, but because whoever designed these uniforms either didn't account for bodies like hers or actively encouraged the problem. The blazer fit her shoulders fine but pulled across her chest in a way that made the yellow dress shirt underneath work overtime. The top 2 buttons were undone because anything else would have been structural engineering. The black pleated skirt sat high on her waist and ended at mid-thigh, showing off long legs wrapped in black tights. She looked sexy, and she knew it. "Morning," Belle said. Her tone was neutral, but her eyes did a quick assessment of my tray, my coffee, my general state of existence. Whatever conclusion she reached, she didn't share it. Naomi smiled at me. It was a soft, genuine smile that made her whole face change. She looked tired. Naomi was tall. Taller than Belle by a couple inches, maybe 5'10", with a slender build that the uniform somehow made look even more elegant. Her pink and black striped hair fell loose down her back, past her shoulders, almost to her waist. The colors were vivid in the morning light. Her pink eyes were large and kind and currently a little puffy, like she'd been crying or hadn't slept. The uniform on her fit differently than it did on Belle. Where Belle's curves fought against the fabric, Naomi's height and proportions made everything look tailored. The blazer hung properly. The skirt was the same regulation length, but on her longer legs it looked almost conservative. Almost. Because her chest still strained the yellow shirt in ways that suggested the Academy's uniform designer either hated women or loved them too much. The top 3 buttons were fastened, but the fabric still pulled. Her black tights were the same as Belle's, but on Naomi they emphasized legs that went on forever. Who the fuck designed these uniforms? Was the Academy director a pervert? That was a rhetorical question. The answer was obviously yes. Mark looked up from his eggs and grinned. "Yo, Jace, you find the place okay, or did you get lost again?" "App worked great," I said. I sat down across from Belle and next to Naomi. No wrong turns. No maintenance closets. Minor miracle. Belle snorted into her orange juice. Naomi's smile got a little wider. "Belle told us about yesterday. 6 times. 6 confirmed times," I said. "There may have been more." I stopped counting after I ended up at the north entrance somehow. Mark laughed. He was a good-looking guy, the kind of effortlessly friendly face that made people trust him immediately. Dark skin, close-cropped hair, and wore glasses. Currently working through a plate of pancakes like he had somewhere important to be. "Man, I don't know how you survived that long without the app," Mark said. "I downloaded it the second I saw the email." "I skipped the email," I admitted. "Yeah," Belle mentioned. Mark took another bite of pancake. "What were you doing instead?" "Panicking quietly." That got another laugh from Mark and a small giggle from Naomi. Belle just watched me over the rim of her juice glass. "How'd you sleep?" I asked the table generally. "Terrible," Naomi said immediately. Her voice was soft and apologetic, like admitting she'd slept poorly was somehow a moral failing. "I kept thinking about the house meeting. About Alexander. About what happens if I'm in the bottom rankings after the evaluation." "You'll be fine," Mark said. He said it with the kind of easy confidence that suggested he actually believed it. "Your ability's solid. You just gotta show them you can use it." Naomi didn't look convinced, but she nodded anyway. Belle set down her juice. "I slept fine. Dorm's quiet. Roommate hasn't shown their face yet, so I have the place to myself." "Lucky," Mark said. "What about you?" Belle asked, looking at me. "Roommate showed up around 6:40 last night," I said. "Quiet. Keeps to themselves." We exchanged maybe 10 words total. "That's ideal," Belle said. "Yeah," I agreed. I didn't mention that my roommate was a girl pretending to be a guy with an A-rank ability and enough trauma to fill a storage unit. That seemed like information Belle didn't need. I ate some eggs. They were decent. Properly seasoned. Not cafeteria slop. "You hitting the gym this morning?" Mark asked me. I nodded. "Yeah. 5 a.m. Trying to build a routine before classes destroy my schedule." Mark's eyebrows went up. 5? Damn. That's dedication. That's desperation. I corrected. "This body needs work." Belle's eyes flicked down to my stomach where the blazer was pulling, then back up to my face. She didn't say anything, but the look said enough. Naomi smiled. "I think you're fine," she said quietly. "Everyone starts somewhere." She meant it kindly. I appreciated the sentiment even if it didn't change the reality. "What about you?" I asked Mark. "You training?" "Yeah, but not that early. I'm gonna hit the rec center after classes. Maybe around 4 or 5. You want to join? Maybe, I said. Depends on how much homework they bury us with on day one. It's day one, Belle said flatly. They're not giving us homework yet. They're giving us syllabi and rules and maybe a diagnostic test to see who's completely fucked. Mark grimaced. You think they'll actually test us today? 100%, Belle said. They need baseline data. That's how they build the rankings. Naomi looked like she might throw up. I sipped my coffee and checked my phone under the table. Pulled up the group chat Belle had started last night with the lottery kids. A few messages had come through while I was in the gym. Jordan. Anyone else freaking out or just me, Belle? Just you, Jordan. Cool. Gonna go panic in the corner then, Naomi. I'm nervous too. It's okay to be nervous. Jordan. Thanks, Naomi, you are a saint. The conversation had died there around 11 p.m. I put my phone away. You guys ready for Hunter Theory? I asked. No, Naomi said. Yes, Belle said. I mean, it's theory, Mark said. How bad can it be? Depends on the professor, I said. Belle looked at me. You know who's teaching it? No idea. Then how do you know it depends on the professor? Because everything depends on the professor. I finished my eggs and started on the bacon. The dining hall was filling up now. More students. More noise. The morning energy was different from dinner. Less posturing. More exhaustion. I spotted Hikaru entering through the main doors. She moved through the space like she was walking through a crowd of ghosts. Eyes forward. Shoulders straight. Black uniform perfect. Hair tied back. She grabbed a tray, loaded it with plain oatmeal and black coffee, and sat alone at a table near the back corner. Didn't look at anyone. Didn't check her phone. Just ate. I looked away before she noticed me staring. Belle followed my line of sight, clocked Hikaru, then looked back at me. You know them. Roommate, I said. Belle's eyes widened slightly. That's your roommate? Yeah. They're hot, I supplied. I was gonna say intense. Also true. Mark leaned over to look. Damn. Your roommate looks like they could kill someone with a stare. Probably, I said. Naomi glanced over, then quickly looked away like she felt guilty for even looking. They seem lonely. They seem like they want to be left alone, Belle corrected. Also true. I drank more coffee and checked the system timer. Hunter Theory started in an hour and 13 minutes. I needed to figure out my next move with Belle. Sitting at breakfast together was good. Shared classes were better. But I needed to escalate the interaction without making it obvious I was escalating. I needed a reason to spend time with her that wasn't just, hey, let's hang out. Something practical. Something she'd actually agree to. I was still working on that when Javier walked past our table with his tray loaded with enough food to feed 3 people. He spotted Mark, waved enthusiastically, and kept walking toward an empty table by himself. Mark waved back. You know that guy? I asked. Kinda, Mark said. We talked a bit yesterday during orientation. He's lottery too. Seems cool. Really into hero stuff. Hero stuff? Like he's got notebooks full of combat analysis. Watches famous hunters fight footage. Takes notes on techniques and shit. It's kinda impressive actually. Belle rolled her eyes. It's kinda nerdy. Mark shrugged. Let the man have his hobbies. I finished my coffee and stood up. I'm gonna grab a refill before class. Anyone need anything? I'm good, Mark said. Belle shook her head. Naomi looked at her half-finished plate and didn't answer. I walked back to the coffee station and poured another cup. When I turned around, I had a direct line of sight to 3 tables. Hikaru, alone in the corner, eating oatmeal with mechanical precision. Javier, alone by the windows, scribbling in his notebook between bites. Belle, Naomi, and Mark, together at their table, talking about something that made Naomi smile. 3 different futures. 3 different survival strategies. I walked back to the table with the coffee and sat down. Hunter Theory in 1 hour, 10 minutes. I had work to do. You really are hopeless, aren't you? Belle stood at the elevator with her arms crossed, watching me check the app for the 3rd time in 2 minutes. Hey, don't be rude. I said. It's not my fault this academy is so confusing. It's literally color-coded, Belle said. Blue trim, theory towers, east building, room 204. A child could follow these directions. A child with a better sense of direction than me. Belle sighed and started walking. Come on, I'll lead. Try to keep up. I followed. That was a mistake. Belle walked like she was being chased. Long strides, fast pace, completely unbothered by the fact that I was currently operating in a body that treated cardio like a war crime. My legs started burning by the second hallway. My breath came shorter by the third. I dropped back a few steps just to maintain some kind of sustainable rhythm, which put me directly behind Belle, which gave me a perfect view of her uniform skirt swishing with each step. And the fact that the skirt was shorter than regulation. And the fact that Belle's ass was eating those black tights for breakfast. And the fact that every fourth or fifth step, the fabric shifted just enough to show a sliver of bare skin where the tights ended and her actual body began. I caught a flash of pale skin, a curve, and then something else. A small dark mark on her right cheek. Heart-shaped. A mole. Ha, a mole, I muttered. Belle stopped walking. She turned around so fast I almost ran into her. What did you just say? Shit. Atoll, I said immediately. Belle's eyes narrowed. What? I was wondering if this island is an atoll, I said. You know, coral reef formation. Ring-shaped. Encloses a lagoon. San Nicolas doesn't quite fit the profile because it's got actual elevation at the center. But technically some geologists argue that any island with a raised reef structure could qualify as proto-atoll development depending on the tectonic activity and sediment composition. Belle stared at me. I stared back. What the hell is an atoll? She asked. I just explained it. No, I mean, why do you know that? I read things, I said, which was technically true. What I didn't mention was that I'd learned this specific information from Stacy, a marine biologist with the softest ass. We'd hooked up a few times back in my old life, and she had this habit of talking about marine ecosystems while we were lying in bed after sex. Coral formations, ocean acidification, reef biodiversity. She'd go on for hours if I let her. Apparently some of it stuck. Thanks, Stacy. Belle looked suspicious, but she let it drop. Okay, weirdo. Come on. This time she walked next to me instead of ahead. I tried not to look relieved. We made it to the theory towers without further incident. The east building was exactly where the app said it would be. Second floor. Room 204. The door was already open when we arrived. I stopped in the doorway. The room was huge. Amphitheater-style seating arranged in descending rows. Split down the middle by an invisible line that separated black uniforms on the left from blue uniforms on the right. House Obsidian and House Sapphire. Compound class. Great. Belle walked in like she owned the place and headed for the Obsidian side. I followed. My eyes scanned the room on autopilot. Blue uniforms. Sapphire students. Mostly clustered in groups. Talking quietly. A few sitting alone. Black uniforms. Obsidian students. Same deal. And then I saw her. Blair Davenport. Sitting 3 rows from the front on the Obsidian side. Perfect posture. Short red hair cut in that sharp bob that framed her face like a weapon. Cold blue eyes. Pale skin. Red ribbon tied at her collar in a bow. Glasses perched on her nose even though she didn't need them. And a body that belonged in a museum or a crime scene depending on your perspective. The blazer strained across her chest in ways that suggested structural engineering had been involved in the tailoring process. The yellow shirt underneath pulled tight enough that I could see the outline of buttons working overtime. Her skirt sat high on a waist so small it looked photoshopped. And next to her sat Misato Ayam. Lime green hair tied back in a ponytail. Sharp features. Athletic build. A body that screamed, "I can kick your ass and look good doing it," with a chest that made the uniform jacket look like a suggestion rather than actual clothing. Both of them looked like they'd walked out of a hentai and into reality. Blair was glaring daggers across the aisle. I followed her line of sight. Gong Sunhee, the other heiress, sitting on the sapphire side with perfect posture and an expression of polite serenity that probably took years to perfect. Long black hair pulled into a high ponytail. Elegant features. Her uniform fit like it had been designed by someone who understood fabric tension and physics. The blazer hugged her shoulders and waist before pulling across a chest that rivaled Blair's in pure structural audacity. 2 heiresses. 2 houses. 1 room. This was going to be a shit show. I headed for the back row. Bell peeled off somewhere in the middle. I didn't track where. The seats were those fold-down lecture hall chairs with attached desks. I picked one near the corner and sat down. The sides of the chair dug into my waist. Fuck. I shifted. Adjusted. Tried to get comfortable. The plastic creaked. I needed to lose weight. Fast. Someone sat down next to me. Naomi. She smiled when she saw me. Hi, Jace, she said softly. Hey, I said. She arranged her bag carefully on the floor next to her feet. Her movements were precise, nervous, like she was trying not to take up too much space. Naomi Love, the designated wholesome girl. The heroine who was supposed to become Javier's first real friend at the academy. The one who'd develop a quiet, one-sided crush on him while he remained oblivious because he was too busy chasing Blair and getting his ass kicked in training montages. In the original story, Naomi loses. She confesses her feelings during the winter festival in their second year, and Javier gently turns her down because he's already secretly dating Blair by that point. Naomi takes it gracefully, stays friends, supports him from the sidelines, eventually graduates and joins a mid-tier guild where she becomes a respected support hunter. Tragic? A little. Realistic? Extremely. I looked at her now. Pink and black striped hair falling past her shoulders. Pink eyes that were too kind for a place like this. Tall frame that made the uniform look almost modest despite the fact that her chest was still straining the buttons. She caught me looking and her cheeks went pink. Sorry, she said immediately. I didn't mean to sit next to you without asking. I can move if you want. Sorry, Naomi said immediately. I didn't mean to sit next to you without asking. I can move if you want. You're fine, I said. Are you sure? I don't want to be a bother. Naomi. She looked at me. You're fine, I repeated. She nodded, relaxed slightly, smiled again. God, she was sweet. Too sweet for this place. The kind of person who'd apologize for existing if you gave her half a reason to. I checked my phone. 7:58 a.m. The room was almost full now. Students still filing in. Finding seats. Separating into house sections like opposing armies. The door at the front of the room opened. A woman walked in. I recognized her immediately. Dr. Vivian Cross. House Amber homeroom teacher. Hunter theory instructor. Owner of a PhD in psychology and a body that belonged in an adult film. She was tall. 5'8" maybe. Long dark purple hair that fell in loose waves past her shoulders. Sharp violet eyes behind thin-framed glasses she absolutely did not need. Red lipstick. Perfect makeup. And a figure that made every other woman in the room look underdressed by comparison. The blazer was tied below her bust like a crop top. The white shirt underneath was buttoned but tight enough to show everything. A black pencil skirt ended mid-thigh. Fishnet stockings. Heeled boots that added 2 inches. She moved like she knew exactly what effect she had on people and found it amusing. Every male student in the room stopped breathing. Some of the female students too. Dr. Cross walked to the front of the room, set her bag down on the desk, and turned to face the class. She smiled. Good morning, she said. Her voice was smooth, warm, the kind of voice that made you want to listen even if she was reading a phone book. Welcome to Hunter Theory. I'm Dr. Vivian Cross. You can call me Dr. Cross or Professor Cross or Vivian if you're feeling brave. Someone in the Sapphire section laughed nervously. Dr. Cross's smile widened. This is a compound class, she continued, which means House Obsidian and House Sapphire will be learning together for the next 9 months. I expect you to treat each other with respect. Save your rivalry bullshit for the simulations. She said bullshit like it was a normal word. I liked her already. Hunter theory covers the fundamentals, Dr. Cross said. She walked across the front of the room. Her heels clicked against the floor. Gate mechanics, monster ecology, mana theory, Combat psychology. Basically, everything you need to know to not die like an idiot in your first dungeon. She stopped at the center of the room. Some of you, she said, looking directly at the obsidian section, think you already know this material because your parents are hunters or you grew up around guilds. Her gaze shifted to the sapphire section. Some of you think hard work and discipline will carry you through. Then she looked at the back row. At me. At Naomi. At the other lottery kids scattered throughout the room. And some of you are just trying to survive. She let that hang in the air for a moment. Here's the truth, Dr. Cross said. None of that matters. In this class, you're all starting from zero. I don't care about your family name. I don't care about your house ranking. I don't care if you're here on a lottery ticket or a trust fund. She picked up a tablet from the desk. What I care about, she said, is whether you can think critically under pressure, whether you can adapt when your plan falls apart, whether you can look at a monster you've never seen before and figure out how to kill it before it kills you. The room was silent. Dr. Cross tapped the tablet. We're starting with a diagnostic assessment, she said. 30 questions. Multiple choice. You have 45 minutes. This will not affect your grade, but it will tell me where you're at so I can tailor the curriculum accordingly. She swiped the screen. Every student's phone buzzed simultaneously. I pulled mine out. A notification from the Academy app. Link to the assessment. I opened it. Question 1 appeared on the screen. What is the primary difference between an E-rank gate and a D-rank gate? I stared at the question. Then I looked at Dr. Cross, who was now sitting on the edge of her desk with her legs crossed, watching the room with an expression that suggested she knew exactly how many of us were about to fail. I looked back at my phone. 2 days left on the timer. I had a diagnostic test to take. A teacher who looked like walking temptation. And a room full of future problems I'd need to navigate if I wanted to survive the week. I tapped option C and moved to the next question. 45 minutes for 30 questions about gate mechanics. I'd rather eat glass. Not because the material was hard. It wasn't. Basic ecology, mana theory, rank structures, gate classification systems. Stuff any competent hunter knew before their second year. I'd absorbed most of it by osmosis reading the novel, and the rest was just pattern recognition. No, the problem was that I was sitting in a college classroom doing a test. Again, I dropped out 3 years ago specifically to avoid this exact situation. The chairs that were built for someone without a body. The fluorescent lighting that turned everyone into corpses. The ambient smell of anxiety and bad coffee. I had escaped all of this. I had a career. I had an apartment. I had a sex life that didn't involve homework. And now I was 18 again, crammed into a lecture seat that was actively trying to bisect my thighs, staring at a multiple-choice diagnostic on my phone. I scrolled to question 6. What distinguishes a mana-active gate from a dormant gate? The options were painfully easy. I tapped B and kept moving. Around me, the room had settled into the particular silence of academic performance. Pencils against paper. The occasional frustrated exhale. Someone 3 rows ahead was tapping their foot against the floor at a frequency that was going to give me an aneurysm before question 15. I did not look at Dr. Cross. I absolutely wanted to look at Dr. Cross. She was sitting at the front desk reviewing something on her tablet, legs still crossed, purple hair catching the morning light through the classroom windows. The glasses were perched at the end of her nose. This world needed to calm down. Every woman in it was engineered to make a man lose his mind. The professors, the students, the whole population of this island was apparently optimized for maximum distraction. I had 66 hours to live and the universe kept putting beautiful women in my peripheral vision like it was trying to make me forget that I would literally die if I didn't focus my energy on one. I was not going to forget. I tapped through questions 7 through 12 in under 4 minutes. Monster classification. Gate stability indicators. The difference between a mana surge and a mana bleed. Straightforward. Then I heard it. A very soft, very controlled breath from my left. Naomi. She was staring at her phone with the expression of someone reading a death sentence. Her bottom lip was tucked between her teeth. The pink and black striped hair fell forward slightly as she hunched over her screen. She hadn't tapped anything in at least 2 minutes. Her leg was bouncing. "Hey!" I said quietly. She looked up fast, like I'd caught her doing something wrong. "Don't overthink it," I said. "I'm not," she started, then stopped. "Okay, maybe a little. This isn't something you need to ace. But the rankings, it's a diagnostic," I said. "It literally doesn't count." Cross said it herself. Naomi looked back at her screen. "I know. I just don't know half of these." "Nobody does," I said. "That's the point. She's finding out what we know before she teaches us. You could answer everything wrong and it wouldn't matter." Naomi was quiet for a second. "You told me before," I said. "Everyone starts somewhere, right?" She blinked. "I said that. At dinner. You were talking me and my body." Her posture loosened slightly. Just a fraction. "Okay," she said. "Okay, you're right. Tap something and move on. You'll be fine." She nodded, looked back at her phone, tapped an answer. Good. Last thing I needed was Naomi having a panic attack next to me while I was trying to work through a test I was genuinely considering tanking on purpose. Because here was the thing. If I aced this diagnostic, Cross would slot me into the competent pile and move on. No special attention required. No reason to schedule additional sessions. No academic excuse to get near the most interesting teacher on this island. But if I flunked it spectacularly, one-on-one tutoring was a legitimate institutional option. The thought was so objectively terrible that I respected it. I kept moving through the test. Questions 13 through 20 were slightly harder. Gate breach protocols. Emergency mana venting procedures. The physics of how a gate collapse affected surrounding territory. I knew the answers. I tapped them. Then I got to question 22. Describe the primary risk factor in second entry gate clearance without updated scouting data. It was fill in. Open response. Not multiple choice. I stared at it. The correct answer was overconfidence leading to underestimation of dynamic monster respawn patterns. Any first year with basic prep work knew this. It was almost insultingly foundational. I typed, insufficient environmental reconnaissance compounded by assumption bias in threat level assessment, which was the same thing just longer and with more syllables. It would read as someone who understood the concept but liked the sound of their own brain. Adequate. Not impressive. Exactly where I wanted to land. I finished the remaining 8 questions in 6 minutes. Deliberately fumbled 2 of them. Not obviously wrong, just questionable enough to register as knowledge gaps without looking like I hadn't tried. Submitted at the 32-minute mark. Then I put my phone down and looked at the room. Naomi was still working. She'd relaxed after our exchange, though, tapping steadily through questions with less visible dread. Good. Across the aisle, the sapphire section was interesting. Gong Sun-hee sat 4 rows ahead on the opposite side. She was working through the test with rigid posture and her pen moving across a paper notebook in parallel, cross-referencing something. She'd brought a notebook to a phone-based test for the supplementary notes. The girl was taking a diagnostic that didn't count with the energy of someone whose entire future depended on the score. I almost felt bad. Then I looked 2 rows ahead of me on the obsidian side and saw Blair Davenport. Short red hair, pale skin, blue eyes that could strip paint. She sat with her back straight and her screen tilted slightly away from the people around her, which suggested she was paranoid about people copying, which meant she either didn't trust her classmates or she was competitive enough that even a meaningless test felt like a battlefield. Probably both. Blair was the kind of person who didn't turn off. Misato Ayam, the lime-haired athletic one beside her, finished early and was now twirling her pen around her thumb with the bored ease of someone waiting for the rest of the class to catch up. She had the relaxed confidence of a person who either knew the material cold or didn't care about the outcome at all. I was going to enjoy watching these people interact for the next 3 years. Assuming I survived the next 3 days. Right? Test done. Now what? I leaned back in the chair, which was a mistake because the chair was not built for that and made a sound that turned 3 heads in my direction. I straightened, looked at my phone, opened the Academy app and checked the building map. Physical conditioning started at 10. That was in a little over an hour. After the test wrapped, Cross stood up from her desk and walked to the center of the room again. Her heels announced her before she got there. "Pencils down," she said. "Phones down. Look at me." The room complied. "I've already got your results," she said, tapping her tablet. "And I'm not going to share them individually because again, this doesn't count. What I will tell you is that the most commonly missed question was number 22, the open response about second entry risk factors." She looked at the room. "That's not a memorization problem," she said. "That's a thinking problem. Most of you described what could go wrong without explaining why humans consistently make that mistake when they know better. That's the actual lesson. Understanding failure isn't enough. You need to understand why smart people fail anyway." She let that sit. "That's what this class is actually about," she said. "Not the material. The material is just the vehicle." I respected that answer. She turned to the board behind her and pulled up a holographic display. Gate diagrams. Classification charts. The semester outline materialized across the screen in clean organized sections. "We're starting with E and D rank gate ecology," she said. "Not because it's the most exciting topic. Because it's where most first-year hunters die. Not in S-rank gates. Not in high-level content. In the easy ones. Because they stopped paying attention." She walked slowly across the front of the room. E-rank gates are predictable environments. Consistent monster patterns. Low mana density. Safe entry and exit corridors. She stopped. "And that predictability is exactly why they kill people. The moment you think you know what's coming is the moment something changes and you're not ready for it." She tapped the display. A monster appeared on screen. Something with too many legs and a jaw that opened the wrong direction. Several students made sounds. Cross smiled. "This is a D-rank hollow crawler," she said pleasantly. "It lives in gate environments classified D-rank or below. It's about the size of a golden retriever. It is not particularly strong. Cannot use mana abilities. Its attack pattern is completely predictable." She advanced the slide. The same monster, but now there were 11 of them. "They travel in packs of 8 to 15, she said. "They coordinate. They flank. They identify the weakest person in a group within approximately 45 seconds of first contact and they prioritize that target above all else until it's dead." Naomi made a very small sound next to me. "The weakest person," Cross repeated. "Which means the moment you enter a D-rank gate with someone who doesn't belong there, you have given the monsters a roadmap to your team's failure." She looked at the room. "I'm not telling you this to scare you," she said. "I'm telling you this because the first gate you set foot in, I need you to understand that it already knows more about your group's dynamics than most of your teammates do." She clicked to the next slide. Diagrams. Data tables. Recommended formation structures for D-rank encounters. I found myself actually paying attention. Not because I needed the information, but because Cross taught the way a person taught when they'd actually seen what happened when students didn't learn. There was something specific in the way she described the hollow crawler's targeting behavior. She'd watched someone get prioritized before. Someone who didn't make it. The lecture ran 35 minutes. Cross covered gate environment basics, mana density measurement, and the standard entry protocol that every licensed hunter was supposed to follow before crossing a gate threshold. She made it interesting by being casually honest about which parts of protocol people actually followed and which parts they skipped. "Nobody does the full mana scan before entry," she said. "Everybody thinks they will. Nobody does. Keep that in mind when I test you on it next week." Several students laughed. When the lecture portion ended, Cross opened the floor for questions. A few Sapphire students asked predictable clarification questions. One Obsidian student asked something about gate rank reclassification that suggested his father had told him things that were mostly accurate but slightly wrong, and Cross corrected him without making it humiliating. I did not ask anything. I was watching. When class ended at 9:40, students filed out in house clusters. Naomi gathered her things beside me and stood. "That was actually okay," she said. "Told you. The hollow crawler thing was terrifying. Terrifying and useful." She considered this. Both. I agreed. We walked toward the door. Belle fell in beside me from 2 rows over. her blue hair swaying in the ponytail. She said nothing, which meant she was processing something. Belle went quiet when she was thinking. It was one of the more readable things about her. At the door, I glanced back at Dr. Cross. She was already looking at something on her tablet. The glasses were still perched at the end of her nose. I turned back around and followed my classmates into the hallway. Physical conditioning in 14 minutes. I rolled my neck, felt the body's joints pop in 4 places, and followed the campus map toward Zone 2 and the arena. The men's locker room smelled like fresh rubber and industrial cleaner, which was the most aggressively inoffensive smell a locker room had ever produced in human history. Give it 2 weeks. It would smell like every other locker room on Earth. I found a locker with a yellow tag matching the number on my Academy app and started working the combination. The gym uniform was already inside, folded in that specific way that meant someone got paid to fold gym uniforms, which was a sentence I never expected to think. Black compression shorts. Black athletic shirt with the obsidian house trim in dark charcoal. Black sneakers. The whole thing was nicer than anything I owned in my previous life. A guy 2 lockers down yanked his shirt over his head with the casual efficiency of someone very comfortable with being shirtless. Built like he'd been doing pull-ups since the womb, shoulders wide enough to block a doorframe, brown skin with the kind of muscle definition that came from actual training rather than gym selfies. He caught me looking and nodded. Jace, right? I'm Marcus. He extended a hand. Met you at breakfast. Right, Mark. Atlanta. Invisibility ability. Yeah, I said. Good memory. Small group. He shrugged. We're all we got over here. This was true. The lottery kids in Obsidian numbered 6, and we'd all ended up in the same homeroom. Probably intentional. The Academy liked its social experiments. Jordan Wayne materialized beside me seemingly from nowhere, locker door already open, moving with the specific energy of a person who decided that doing everything slowly was a personality trait. He dropped onto the bench and started unlacing his shoes at the pace of continental drift. Pacer test today, he said to no one in particular. Marcus made a face. How do you know that? Read the syllabus. There's a syllabus? There's always a syllabus. Jordan pulled one shoe off. Set it down. Nobody reads it. I had not read the syllabus. I was already composing my apology to every cell in this body. The pacer test. The fitness gram pacer test. The thing they made middle schoolers do in gym class where you ran back and forth while a recorded voice counted down your remaining dignity. I hadn't thought about that test in 15 years. I hadn't needed to. I'd been in shape. I looked down at my current situation. The gym shirt was going to fit fine. The compression shorts were going to be a conversation piece. Javier Mendoza from the Breakfast Collision came in with 2 other guys I didn't recognize, both in emerald house green trim. One was tall and lanky with wireframe glasses that he kept pushing up his nose. The other was short and stocky with the kind of haircut that suggested he'd asked for something specific and gotten something else entirely. Pacer test's gonna kill me, the tall one announced to the room. I'm not built for cardio. I'm built for standing still and analyzing things. Same, said the short one. Emerald is a thinking house. Emerald is a sitting house, Jordan said, without looking up from his second shoe. The tall emerald kid pointed at Jordan. Exactly. Thank you. Marcus was pulling his shirt on when he started laughing about something, and the conversation in the locker room shifted the way locker room conversations always did, which was away from anything meaningful and toward whatever thought occurred to whoever spoke loudest. You guys see the girl from Sapphire with the silver hair? The short emerald kid, whose name I still didn't know, sat down on the bench across from us. She walked past me in the hallway and I forgot what language I spoke. Yuki Hashizawa, the tall one said immediately. Elite 10, rank 6. Barrier specialist. I wasn't asking for her stats. You should be. She's genuinely terrifying in combat. She's genuinely terrifying in general, Marcus said. Javier, to his credit, was very focused on his locker and not contributing to this conversation. Notebook already open on the bench beside him. The kid never stopped working. Jordan finally got his second shoe off. Mana does something to people physically, he said, with the tone of someone delivering a documentary narration. Read a study about it. The awakening process restructures cellular density. Has cosmetic side effects. Is that why everyone here looks like that? Marcus gestured vaguely at the air. Statistically, yes. I appreciate science, the short emerald kid said. I pulled the gym shirt on and it was fine. The shorts were not a conversation piece after all, which was a relief. The body I was currently occupying was not built for compression anything, but the academy apparently sized everything generously, so I looked like a person preparing to exercise rather than a person being slowly compressed into a tube. The pacer test was going to eat into that buffer in the worst possible way. We filed out of the locker room and onto the field, which was a massive open arena space that the Zone 2 map labeled simply as the arena, in a font that suggested whoever named it had been going through something. The grass was real and the sky was California perfect and the ocean was visible from 3 sides because we were on an island and the architects apparently wanted to make sure nobody forgot that. The girls were already out there. I was going to need a moment. The gym uniform for female students was a black athletic shorts and tank top combination. The obsidian house trim ran along the sides in dark charcoal, and the tank top had a racerback cut that was genuinely useful for athletic activity and absolutely nothing else was going on there. Blair Davenport stood near the edge of the field with perfect posture in a uniform that fit like it had been custom-made, which it probably had been, her red hair catching the morning light. Ms. Otto Iam stood beside her with her lime green hair pulled back into a high ponytail that swayed when she moved. And the gym uniform on Ms. Otto was doing things that gym uniforms were not technically supposed to do. Belle Fox was somewhere in the middle of the group, her blue hair loose for once and falling past her shoulders, shorts hitting mid-thigh on legs that her obsidian skirt had been covering all morning. Jace! Jace! Naomi appeared at my elbow, waving once with the kind of friendly energy that belonged to a golden retriever. She was in the gym uniform with her pink and black striped hair loose down her back. Her pink eyes were wide and genuinely happy to see me, which was the nicest thing that had happened to me since waking up in this body. We have this class together too, she said, more as an observation than a complaint. Seems like it. It's actually kind of nice. She tucked a strand of striped hair behind her ear. Having someone familiar. I don't know most of the Sapphire girls yet. You'll figure it out. I know, it's just. She looked at the field. A lot of people. Same core classes, I said, mostly thinking out loud. Different electives. She nodded at that, turning it over in her head. Yeah, that tracks. House pairings for core curriculum, individual electives for specialization. She paused. Does that mean we're stuck with each other for Hunter Theory and PhysCon all year? Looks like it. She smiled. Good, she said simply. I was looking for Belle, because Belle was my current operational priority and I needed to know where she was at all times during this delicate early phase of building rapport. I found her. She was standing near the right edge of the assembled students, laughing at something, her hand on a guy's arm. The guy she was talking to was tall, good-looking in an expensive way, blonde hair swept back with product, green eyes. His obsidian uniform had that slightly elevated tailoring that came from having it custom-made rather than pulled from a supply closet. He was saying something and Belle was laughing at it with her whole face. Took me 4 seconds to place him. Charles Leon. I remembered Charles Leon. Not because he was important, but because he was the kind of character a story uses to give the actual protagonist something obvious to push against. Minor villain energy. Wealthy, good-looking, legitimate combat ability. His frame-perfect technique was genuinely strong, the kind of thing that got second years talking about a first year in the first week. He'd shown up in the novel around chapter 20 and spent the next 30 chapters doing various things to justify Javier eventually humiliating him in a sanctioned duel. The thing the novel got right about Charles was that his misogyny wasn't performed for effect. It was structural. He'd grown up in a family that treated women as domestic infrastructure and he'd absorbed that framework so completely that he didn't even think about it. He was polite to Belle in the way someone was polite to a painting. Appreciative of the surface. Not thinking about what was underneath. Belle, for her part, was not thinking about any of that. Belle was thinking about Charles Leon's family connections, his guild backing, his obvious wealth, and what proximity to all of that could do for Belle Fox from Burns, Oregon. Which was fair. Belle operated on a different operating system than feelings. But Charles Leon would use her up and discard her the second she stopped being useful or started having opinions, and that was not a prediction, that was a pattern I'd seen this character execute in the source material. My hands had done something. I looked down. My left hand was closed into a loose fist at my side. I opened it deliberately. "What's wrong?" Naomi, still beside me, was looking at my hand and then at my face with that extremely readable concern she projected at everyone within a 5-meter radius. "Nothing," I said. She followed my sight line to Belle and Charles and looked back at me. "Nothing," I said again, and I meant it, and I made sure it read as meant. Naomi accepted this, which was one of her better qualities. The field went quiet. Not the polite settling down quiet of a classroom. The specific quiet that happened when someone with physical authority walked into a space and the air agreed to cooperate. Michael Garrett crossed the field from the facility entrance and the man was an event. 6'5" of retired violence, gray at the temples, a scar running through his left eyebrow. He was wearing the academy instructor uniform and it looked wrong on him, not because it didn't fit but because it looked like a costume over something that didn't need a costume. 2 fingers on his right hand were missing from the second knuckle down. He stopped in the center of the assembled students and looked at us the way a person looked at a problem they intended to solve. "I'm Garrett," he said. His voice was the vocal equivalent of concrete. "You will call me coach or sir. Not both. Pick one." Nobody said anything. "Physical conditioning meets 4 times a week. You will be here. You will be on time. If you are not on time, you will run until you understand what on time means." He turned slowly, making eye contact with sections of the group rather than individuals. "Today we are establishing your baseline." He held up a tablet that looked small in his hand. "Everything you do today goes into your file. I use this file to track whether you are improving. Improvement is mandatory. Plateaus are a conversation I will have with you personally, and those conversations are not pleasant." Someone near the Emerald Cluster cleared their throat nervously. "The assessment has 4 components," Garrett said. "Endurance run, strength test, agility course, and mana output measurement. The last one requires the equipment my staff is setting up behind me." He didn't look behind him because he didn't need to. "We start with the endurance run." I looked at the track that ran around the perimeter of the field. I looked at the body I was currently operating. The pacer test would have been survivable. A timed distance run was going to be a documentation of every poor choice Jace Monroe had made in the last 18 months, performed in front of 2 full houses of people I needed to not pity me. Garrett looked at the assembled students one more time. "The baseline is not a competition," he said. "It is information. I need accurate information." He paused. "Do not perform. Do not pace yourself for an audience. Run until your body stops, then keep running. I need to know what you actually are, not what you think you should look like." He clicked something on the tablet. "On the track. Now." The track was a 1/4-mile loop around the field perimeter. Garrett stood at the start line with his tablet and his 2 remaining fingers on his right hand wrapped around a stopwatch that probably cost $40 and had outlasted 3 guilds. "4 laps," he said. 1 mile. Go." We went. I lasted approximately 45 seconds at pace before my body filed a formal complaint. The complaint included my lungs, which had apparently been storing air as a courtesy and not because they knew how to use it efficiently. My thighs, which communicated their displeasure through a medium I could only describe as fire, and my feet, which were doing their best but resented the entire project. Around me, the field thinned as people pulled ahead. Blair Davenport ran like she had been engineered for it. Back straight, stride long, her red hair in a tight braid that didn't move. Hikaru was already 15 meters ahead of the pack and pulling further, her movement so economical it looked like she was barely trying. Naomi ran with the slightly panicked efficiency of someone who had spent years hauling fishing nets and was applying that energy to forward momentum. I ran like I was moving furniture uphill. "Monroe." Garrett didn't look up from his tablet. "You're shuffling. Pick your feet up." I picked my feet up. My knees offered a counterproposal, which I rejected, and kept going. The first lap took me 3 minutes and some change. A reasonable runner does a mile in 7 to 8 minutes. I was not a reasonable runner. I was a man in a body that had spent a year and a half treating the walk from the couch to the refrigerator as meaningful cardio, and now I was on lap 2 of a mandatory fitness evaluation in front of 200 people who ranged from indifferent to actively entertained. Charles Leon lapped me. He ran past with the easy, long-limbed stride of someone who had a personal trainer from age 10, and as he went past, he looked over at me with an expression that wasn't quite a smirk but was doing everything a smirk does without committing to the paperwork. "Hang in there," he said. The way he said it removed all nutritional value from the words. I kept running. On the far end of the second lap, 2 obsidian boys I hadn't met yet ran past me having a conversation, actual words between them, full sentences, while I was rationing breath like it was wartime currency. "Wild that lottery slots go to people who can't even run a mile." The other one said something I didn't catch. The first one laughed. "Academy's a charity now, apparently." They pulled ahead without looking back. I noted their faces for later. Not because I was going to do anything dramatic about it. I wasn't the revenge fantasy type. I just found it useful to know exactly who had been comfortable saying something in front of me while I was physically unable to respond, because that information was relevant to how I filed them in the long-term mental ledger of people worth investing in. The answer was not very. Lap 3. My vision had acquired a slight shimmer at the edges that I chose to interpret as a visual artifact of intense effort and not a medical warning. My mouth tasted like copper and sports drink, which was an interesting flavor combination that I was not enjoying. My thighs had stopped complaining and moved into a different phase that I suspected was acceptance. The system pinged. I almost stumbled. A small notification appeared in the lower right of my vision, translucent and blue-white, the way all the system text looked. Physical training detected duration. 12 minutes sustained cardiovascular activity endurance /E/ progress. Plus 0.5 segments current /E/ 3/10. I looked at it for 2 full strides. Half a segment. In 12 minutes. From running badly. In the gym this morning, 40 minutes of lifting had given me half a segment in endurance. Running apparently was more efficient. Or my body was burning through the conversion faster because it was completely unaccustomed to sustained output. Either way, half a segment. I did the math while my lungs staged a small protest. If the system updated on a roughly 10-minute cycle for sustained cardio, and each update gave half a segment, a full lap around this track took me about 3.5 minutes. 4 laps was 14 minutes of active running, which meant roughly 1 update per mile. 1 segment per mile. Endurance sat at E rank with 3 segments now. 10 segments per rank. 7 more segments to D rank. 7 miles of sustained running. That was a terrible thought for a person currently struggling with mile 1. Lap 4. The pack had largely finished ahead of me. A cluster of students stood near the finish with water bottles, cooling down, watching the stragglers. I counted for people still behind me on the track, which was not as comforting as I had hoped because 2 of them were walking. I was not walking. This was a low bar and I was claiming it. Belle stood near the finish line with her blue hair loose now, having pulled it out of the ponytail during the run, and she was watching me with an expression I couldn't read from this distance. I crossed the finish line. Garrett looked at his stopwatch. 14:22, he said, and wrote it down without additional commentary. I walked 4 steps and put my hands on my knees because my body needed the geometry and I needed a moment where the horizon stopped tipping slightly to the left. "Not bad for your first lap," someone said. I looked up. Jordan Wayne stood beside me with his hands in his pockets, barely a hair out of place. His expression carrying the profound serenity of a person who had coasted through the run on whatever unholy combination of long legs and absolute indifference to physical discomfort he'd been born with. "That was the whole mile," I said. "I know," Jordan said. He did not elaborate. "What did you run?" 8:40. "Of course you did." He pulled something from his pocket. A small candy, one of those fruit chews. He offered it to me without speaking. I took it because I had burned approximately all of my blood sugar and the gesture was functional regardless of the reason behind it. The candy was watermelon. It was extremely good. I kept that opinion to myself. "Those guys," Jordan said, not pointing, just tilting his head slightly in the direction of the 2 obsidian boys who had run past me during lap 2. "Rennick and Park. Rennick's family runs a supply guild in Denver. Park's just mean. You got all that from a lap? I got it from the student directory this morning. He looked at the field. I like to know who I'm dealing with. I stood up straight. My lungs had forgiven me conditionally. Do they pull this with all lottery kids, or just the ones they can see struggling? From what I can tell, Jordan said, pulling out another candy for himself, they escalate based on response. You didn't respond. I was busy running, right? He chewed the candy slowly. That worked in your favor. They wanted a reaction. You just kept going. Across the field, Garrett was recording times on his tablet, his massive frame blocking the sun at this angle, making him look like a monument someone had constructed and then decided to put in a gym instructor uniform. The system pinged again. Endurance updated /E/April 10th. Endurance updated E/4/10. Another half segment. Post-completion calculation, apparently. Running the mile counted during and then settled afterward. The strength assessment came next. Garrett moved us to a section of the field where equipment had been set up. Pull-up bars, weighted plates, a standing push-up platform with sensors that measured output force. Standard baseline stuff. The academy version was nicer than anything a public school would have, but the concept was identical. You showed up, you did the exercises, the machine told you how weak you were, you wrote it down. Pull-ups, Garrett said. Max reps. Dead hang start. Full extension at the top. If your chin doesn't clear the bar, the rep doesn't count. He demonstrated once with one arm just to establish expectations, then stepped back. The line moved fast. Most of the guild kids were doing 12 to 20 reps. Some of the physically gifted ones were at 25-30. Blair did 17 with perfect form and a face like she found the whole exercise mildly offensive. Belle did 9, which was more than I expected, and she looked satisfied about it. Hikaru stepped up and did 23 consecutive pull-ups with the same mechanical economy she'd brought to everything else, stepped down and walked away without looking at the bar. I stepped up. My hands on the bar felt wrong at first. Too wide. Not enough callus, the weight distribution unfamiliar. I did one. The second was ugly. Partial extension. Chin barely at bar level, every muscle in my back informing me that they had done their part and were now clocking out. 1, Garrett said. He wrote it down. From my right, not close enough to be directed at me but close enough that I was clearly the intended audience. Rennick said something to Park in a voice calibrated for maximum carrying distance without appearing to address anyone directly. 1 pull-up. Jesus. What do you do with a hunter who can't lift his own body weight? Park said something back. Rennick laughed. Can't teach a lottery ticket to earn its slot. The thing about targeted low-volume mockery is that it requires a response to function. Without a response, it's just noise. Noise made by 2 dickheads who were competing for house points by standing near a pull-up bar and talking instead of actually doing anything that would improve their rankings. I picked up my water bottle and drank from it. Garrett looked up from his tablet in the direction of Rennick and Park. He didn't say anything. He just looked. Rennick found somewhere else to be very quickly. The system updated again while I was walking to the push-up platform. Strength progress sustained upper body effort recorded. Strength E progress. Plus 0.3 segments current. E. January 3rd 10. The push-up sensor platform measured force output directly through pressure pads, which meant it caught the actual mechanical load rather than just counting reps. I did 22 push-ups before my shoulders staged the same revolt my arms had earlier. Force output. 41st percentile for age group. 41st percentile meant I was slightly below the midpoint for an 18-year-old male. Naomi was at the station beside me. She had done 15 pull-ups, which she'd clearly not expected, given the way she looked at her own hands afterward like they'd made a decision without consulting her. You okay? She asked, looking at my platform readout. Operational, I said. She frowned at that but accepted it. The agility course was a timed obstacle run through a series of stations. Lateral shuffles, cone cuts, balance beams, low crawls, short sprint finishes. It was designed to test quick direction changes and body control rather than raw speed. This was objectively worse for me than the endurance run. I completed it in 41 seconds. The median was around 28. Javier, who had apparently spent the last 2 years watching hunter combat videos and practicing footwork drills in his living room, ran it in 24 seconds and then stood at the finish looking like he was trying not to celebrate in public. I did not begrudge him this. Javier was going to need every win he could collect in this environment, and footwork drills were a legitimate skill. The system added an agility note while I walked off the course. Agility progress sustained multi-directional movement recorded. Agility, E progress, plus 0.2 segments current, E1. February 10th. The last station was mana output. A crystalline sphere on a pedestal, roughly the size of a basketball, that measured mana concentration and output intensity when a student placed both hands on the surface and pushed. Most students got readouts in the D to C range. A few of the guild kids with strong bloodlines lit the thing up in the B range. One sapphire girl with silver hair who I was pretty sure was Yuki Hashizawa barely touched the sphere, and it glowed so intensely that Garrett actually looked up from his tablet. I put my hands on it. The sphere registered my output and displayed the readout. D rank. 3.2 intensity. Which was fine. The system had my magic stat at D rank already, carried over from whatever baseline Jace Monroe's awakening had established. This was consistent with that. Garrett noted it and moved on. What he did do, very briefly, was pause after writing down my number and look at me with an expression that wasn't readable as anything specific. Not dismissive. Not impressed. Just present, the way someone looked when they were updating a prior assumption with new data. Then he moved to the next student. I stood at the edge of the field with my water bottle and pulled up the system status. Divine Milking System Physical Stats Strength E, January 3rd 10, Endurance E, 4/10, Agility E, January 2nd 10, Perception D, Magic D, Lifespan. 49 hours 47 minutes. The endurance movement was real. For segments from 2 this morning. The gym plus the run plus the sustained effort of the agility course had moved it 2 full segments in one morning. If the pattern held, and if I kept training daily, endurance would hit D rank in roughly 3 days of sustained effort. Without the sexual training multiplier. With it, potentially 1 day. Across the field, Garrett called the class back together for the cooldown and assessment debrief. The numbers were shrinking, but so was the gap between where I started this morning and where I needed to be. I capped my water bottle and walked toward the group. I was bent over like a question mark, hands on knees trying to remember how breathing worked. Air went in, air came out, except my lungs had apparently forgotten the second part and were just holding on to everything like a fucking miser. Mark's hand landed on my back with a solid thump that nearly sent me sprawling. Stand up, man. His voice was somewhere between concerned and amused. Can't show weakness. And you gotta be able to breathe better if you stand. Don't you think I know that? The problem wasn't knowledge. The problem was that my body had decided to file a formal grievance against my life choices and was now conducting a work slowdown to make its point. Every muscle from my calves to my shoulders was vibrating with that specific flavor of exhaustion that suggested I'd find new and exciting ways to be sore tomorrow. But Mark was right. I pushed myself upright and pulled my chest up, forcing my lungs to expand properly. The immediate relief was enough that I wanted to kiss him, but that would have been weird, so I just nodded instead. Better? He asked. Operational. You keep saying that word. I don't think you know what it means. Garrett was already calling the class back together, his voice carrying across the field with the easy authority of someone who'd spent decades making people do things they didn't want to do. Students assembled in loose rows, some still catching their breath, others barely winded. I focused on standing upright and looking like a person who was handling this fine. The satisfaction of watching those numbers climb in the system interface had been real, though. Endurance up 2 full segments in one morning. Strength ticking upward. Agility following suit. It was the kind of visible progress that web novels spent entire chapters celebrating, and I was living it. Except I was also dying in 48 hours, which put a damper on the celebration. Garrett ran through the baseline results without naming individual students. Median times, average outputs, percentile breakdowns. He explained that these numbers would be tracked monthly and compared against our individual progress curves rather than against each other. The goal was improvement, not competition. Which was horseshit because everything here was competition, but it was nice horseshit that made people feel better about the constant evaluation. While Garrett talked, I activated Snake Eyes. The overlays appeared instantly, translucent text boxes hovering above every girl in my field of view like a particularly perverted video game HUD. Belle first. She was standing 10 meters to my right, blue hair still loose and falling past her shoulders despite the workout. Belle Fox 36DD, 24-36 rank. Bronze current attraction, 24%. That was higher than I'd expected. Significantly higher. Yesterday at dinner she'd been at 18 after I'd hit her with the charm effect. Either the effect had lingering duration I hadn't accounted for, or the breakfast conversation and the walk to class had actually moved the needle naturally. I kept my eyes moving so it wouldn't look like I was staring. Naomi was easier to find. She was standing right beside me, pink and black hair distinctive even in a crowd, her athletic uniform somehow managing to make her look wholesome despite the obvious physical assets on display. Naomi Love 36D-27-38 rank. Silver current attraction. 34%. Jesus, that was almost double Belle's number. And I'd barely interacted with Naomi beyond sitting next to her in class and running a mile near her. But then again, this tracked with what I knew from the source material. Naomi had always been the type who cared about what was inside rather than surface aesthetics. She'd fallen for the original protagonist despite him being a broke lottery kid with nothing to offer except determination and a good heart. I had determination. The good heart was negotiable. I swept Snake Eyes across the rest of the assembled students, collecting data like a fucking spreadsheet. Blair Davenport, 3%. Barely registered. Made sense, given she was an Ice Queen heiress who probably considered most people beneath her notice. Misato Iam, 1%. Essentially noise. I kept scanning, looking for patterns, looking for opportunities. Most of the girls hovered between 0 and 5%. Generic baseline attraction, the kind of thing that existed because I was a human being in their approximate age range and not actively repulsive. Nothing actionable. Then I hit Hikaru. Hikaru Tanaka 36E-25-35 rank. Gold current attraction. 0% a fat zero. Not even baseline noise. Just complete and total absence of interest. The moment the overlay appeared, Hikaru's red eyes snapped to me. I immediately shifted my gaze 2 degrees to the left, pretending I'd been looking in that general direction at nothing in particular. Just a guy standing here, gazing vaguely at the middle distance, definitely not using a supernatural ability to analyze his roommate's body. Hikaru held the stare for another second, then returned her attention to Garrett. I did not exhale visibly. That was too close. Using Snake Eyes on Hikaru in a crowd had been stupid. She was too aware, too trained, too suspicious. The charm effect didn't work on people with low baseline attraction anyway, which meant all I'd accomplished was nearly getting myself flagged as a threat by the most dangerous person in my immediate vicinity. Note to self. Do not use divine perverted powers on the secretly a girl samurai assassin who sleeps 4 meters away and could kill me with invisible cutting attacks. Garrett finished his debrief and dismissed us to the locker rooms. Students dispersed in clusters, some heading straight to the showers, others lingering to talk. I walked slowly, letting my breathing even out, running the numbers. Lifespan, 48 hours 3 minutes 2 days. Exactly 2 days remaining on the timer, which meant I needed to make a decision. Belle or Naomi. Both were viable targets. Both had attraction percentages in the actionable range. Both were bronze and silver tier respectively, which meant successful extraction would yield real points and real lifespan extension. But they were different propositions. Belle was a transactional thinker. She'd been raised poor and had learned early that nothing came free. If I approached her with an offer, she'd evaluate it like a business proposal. Risk versus reward. Cost versus benefit. I could probably negotiate something that looked like mutual advantage, play to her material interests, and extract what I needed while giving her something she valued in return. The problem was that Belle was also sharp enough to recognize when she was being played, and if she figured out I was running a long game on her, the entire thing would collapse. Naomi, on the other hand, was already at 34% without me doing anything except existing near her and being minimally decent. She was kind, genuine, and clearly predisposed to seeing the best in people. If I leaned into that, if I played the struggling lottery kid who just needed someone to believe in him, she'd probably open up naturally. The problem with Naomi was that she was genuinely good, which meant manipulating her came with a different kind of cost. Not a practical one, a moral one, which shouldn't have mattered, given that I was literally dying and needed to extract essence from women to survive. But apparently my consciousness still had enough residual conscience to feel bad about corrupting the sweet pink-haired girl who looked at people like they were worth saving. I reached the locker room and started stripping out of the gym uniform. Mark was already at his locker, looking barely winded despite the run. "You good?" he asked, glancing over. "Yeah. You looked rough out there." "I was rough out there, but I finished. That's what counts." He pulled on his regular uniform shirt. "You coming to lunch after this?" "Probably. Belle and Naomi said they'd be there. Jordan too, maybe Javier." I nodded and headed for the showers. The water was hot enough to hurt, which was exactly what I needed. I stood under the spray and let it hammer my shoulders while I thought. Belle or Naomi? The sly blue-haired fox or the cute pink-streaked bunny? Belle would be a negotiation. Naomi would be a seduction. Belle would see me coming. Naomi wouldn't. Belle would calculate the exchange. Naomi would think it was real. I turned off the water and grabbed a towel. The reflection in the mirror was still soft and undefined, still carrying the weight of a year's worth of poor choices that weren't even mine. But the eyes were amber, distinctive, and focused. I had 2 days. I had 2 targets. I had a system that would kill me if I didn't feed it, and I had exactly 0 room for error. I dried off and got dressed, pulling on the obsidian uniform that still fit poorly across the stomach. The blazer pulled when I buttoned it. The pants were tight on the thighs, but I was operational. I checked the system one more time before leaving the locker room. Divine Milking System lifespan, 47 hours 58 minutes. Targets identified. Belle Fox, bronze, 24% attraction, high intelligence. Transactional Naomi Love, silver, 34% attraction, high empathy, genuine recommendation. Prioritize higher attraction target for time efficiency. The system was recommending Naomi. Of course it was. Higher baseline attraction meant less groundwork required. Silver tier meant better point yield than bronze. And the 34% suggested she was already halfway to being receptive without me having to manufacture the entire relationship from scratch. It was the smart play. It was also the play that involved deliberately manipulating the nicest person I'd met since arriving at this academy. I closed the interface and walked out of the locker room. The hallway was full of students heading to their next classes or back to the dorms. I spotted Belle in the crowd, walking with another obsidian girl I didn't recognize. Naomi was nowhere visible, probably already headed to her next class in a different building. My phone buzzed. Group chat notification. Belle, lunch at noon if anyone's free. Mark. I'm there. Jordan. Same. Naomi? I can come. Happy face. I typed a response. Jace. Yeah. Belle sent back a thumbs up emoji. I pocketed my phone and started walking toward Building C. 2 days. 2 targets. 1 choice. I needed to decide. And I needed to decide now. The shower had been exactly what Naomi needed. 15 minutes of hot water and she felt almost like herself again, which was saying something considering the morning had included a mile run, a pull-up bar that had nearly killed her, and a manosphere that glowed embarrassingly dim compared to Yuki Hashizawa's near-blinding output. She sat on the edge of her bed now, towel wrapped around her hair and nothing else, working a wide-toothed comb through the wet sections while her phone propped against her pillow played the ringtone her mom had assigned herself 3 years ago. A little steel drum riff that immediately made Naomi think of Sunday mornings and fish stew. She picked up on the second ring. Baby. Hi, Mom. How's my girl? You eating? You sleeping? Did you make friends yet? What are the professors like? Is the food good? Naomi laughed, the comb catching a tangle. She winced and worked through it carefully. 1 question at a time. I only got 1 question. It just has a lot of parts. Yes, I'm eating. She glanced toward the kitchen, where she'd already scoped out which cabinets were hers and which belonged to her roommate, a quiet girl named Dana who'd been perfectly pleasant and immediately gone to sleep. The food's actually really good. Like really good, Mom. They have these eggs in the morning that taste heavenly. Good eggs. Okay. Friends. Yeah, actually. Naomi pulled the towel off her hair and shook out the long wet stripes of black and pink, draping the towel across her shoulders to catch the drips. The room's air conditioning hit her bare skin immediately, and she reached automatically for the body lotion on her nightstand, tucking the phone between her shoulder and her cheek. There's this girl Belle, she's really sharp. Funny too, once you get past the front she puts up. And some sapphire girls in my gym class who seem cool. We haven't hung out yet, but they seemed nice. What about the teachers? Nice. She smoothed lotion up her arms, the AC raising goosebumps along her collarbone and the tops of her shoulders. Well, one of them is nice. Dr. Cross. She's got this way of explaining things where you actually care about the answer. She paused, thinking about the hollow crawler description, the part about 45 seconds. The other one, Garrett, is terrifying. Terrifying good or terrifying bad? Terrifying I might die in his class. But also probably good. Her mom laughed. That warm sound that Naomi had been hearing her whole life. It made the 1,200 miles feel bigger. I miss you, Naomi said quietly. I miss you too, baby. Your dad's been walking past your room 3 times a day pretending he's checking the water heater. Naomi pressed her lips together. She knew. Her dad didn't talk about things like that, but he had a very specific way of being sad quietly, and the water heater story tracked completely. Tell him I'm okay. You tell him yourself. I'll get him. No, Mom. I have lunch soon. I don't want to. Devin, get your father. Naomi closed her eyes. She spent the next 7 minutes reassuring her father that yes, the island was safe. No, she hadn't been in a real gate yet. Yes, she was wearing sunscreen. She didn't know why that was relevant, but yes. When she finally got back to just her mom, she was mostly dressed, pulling her uniform skirt up over her hips one-handed while the phone balanced against her ear. The skirt sat high on her waist. She checked the mirror on the back of her closet door and smoothed it down, which did almost nothing, given that her legs made the regulation length look like something else entirely. Okay, her mom said, in the particular tone that meant something was coming. Any boys? Naomi's face went warm immediately. She was glad her mom was 1,200 miles away. Mom, I'm just asking. It's been one day. It was one day when I met your father. That's a completely different... I knew before he finished his first sentence that I was going to snatch him up before any other hussy got ideas. One day is enough time to know things. Naomi Grace Love. Well, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Jace Monroe. Text message. Her heart did something abrupt and unasked for. She read it fast. Can we call? 3 words. That was it. No context, no explanation, nothing attached. She stood there in her too short skirt and her half-buttoned shirt and stared at those 3 words for a beat too long, and her brain immediately started running through every possible interpretation. Study plans. Obviously. They had 2 shared classes and it would make sense to coordinate on materials. Except Jace wouldn't text "Can we call?" to set up a study schedule. A study schedule was a text. A study schedule was, hey, same classes want to share notes, not a request for a phone call, which was different. Phone calls were for things that needed a voice, things that were harder to explain over text, things that... Naomi? I have to go, she said. Love you, Mom. Tell Dad I'll call him Sunday. Is it a boy? Bye, Mom. She hung up before the answer got anywhere near her mouth. Stood there for exactly 3 seconds. Then called Jace back before she had time to build the overthinking into something architectural. It rang twice. Hey! Hey! Her voice came out normal. She counted that as a win. You wanted to call? Want to walk to the cafeteria together? Naomi blinked. Then she laughed. Is it so you don't get lost? A pause. Then, no. The easy tone didn't change. But something in it did. Something small. I just wanted to spend time with you. Is that so bad? Naomi looked at herself in the mirror. Pink and black hair still slightly damp, curling at the ends. Pink eyes wider than necessary. Uniform skirt that she'd already resigned herself to. The shell necklace from her mom sitting against the collar of the yellow shirt she'd only just finished buttoning. She should have been used to people wanting to spend time with her, except she really wasn't, and that was a longer conversation she was not going to have with herself right now. "No," she said. "That's not bad. Good. 5 minutes. 5 minutes." She hung up and took a breath, then grabbed her bag from the desk chair, checked that her academy ID was in the front pocket, and took one last look in the mirror. Fine. She looked fine. Her hair was a little wavy from air drying, but that was just what her hair did, and there was nothing to be done about her legs or the skirt length or the way the uniform fit across the chest. She headed for the door. Jace was already in the hallway when she stepped out, leaning against the wall with his hands in his blazer pockets. The uniform still didn't fit quite right across the shoulders, the blazer pulling slightly, and his tie was maybe 2 centimeters off-center. He looked her over once. Not in a gross way, just the way people look at each other when they're checking that the other person actually showed up. "Ready?" he said. "Ready." They took the elevator down, which Naomi considered a mercy, given that her legs were still registering a complaint from the morning's mile run. The elevator doors opened into the lobby and they walked out into the California afternoon together, the sun sitting high and warm over the campus. Naomi pulled up the Academy app automatically. Jace put his hand over her phone screen. She looked at him. "Let's not use the map," he said. "Jace, you got lost 6 times yesterday. And I still got everywhere I needed to go. Eventually. That's the key word." He dropped his hand, and she lowered her phone. "Let's get lost on the road of life." She stared at him. He stared back. Those amber eyes completely steady, like he hadn't just said something ridiculous. "That is," she started. "Profound. I was going to say strange. They're not mutually exclusive." She laughed again and she pressed her fingers against her mouth to contain it. 2 girls from Sapphire walking past glanced over, and Naomi felt her face go warm again. They turned left out of Building C, which was technically the right direction, and started walking. It was a good afternoon for walking. The kind of weather that California apparently just had all the time, like it was running a permanent show. Warm without being heavy. The ocean somewhere beyond the buildings sending a faint salt smell over everything. Naomi had grown up near water and it still got her every time. That smell, the way it settled into the back of the throat and made her think of her father's boat at dawn. "How was your morning?" Jace asked. "Exhausting." "Same. I got 8 pull-ups," she said, unprompted. "I didn't know I could do 8 pull-ups. That's more than I got." She glanced at him sideways. "How many did you get?" "1. Jace. It was a quality rep." She pressed her lips together. "That's not how pull-ups work. It's how my pull-ups work." He said it with no self-pity, just stating a fact. "I've got a lot of room for improvement." There was something in the way he said it. Not fishing for reassurance, not performing humility. Just honest. She was used to people performing things, performing confidence, performing strength, performing not caring. Even the lottery kids performed their anxieties in slightly theatrical ways because they needed each other to see the stress. Jace just said things. "You'll improve," she said. "I know I will." They cut between 2 buildings, which was probably not the most direct route to the dining hall, and came out on a path that ran along the side of the recreation center. Naomi recognized it from the morning. She didn't mention that she knew where they were. Jace didn't seem to realize they were still on track. Or perhaps he preferred the silence. "You called your family?" he asked. She looked at him. "How'd you know?" He shrugged. "You seem lighter than this morning." That was a specific thing to notice. She wasn't sure how she felt about someone noticing that about her this early in the year, this early in knowing each other. She thought about her mom's voice and her dad pretending to check the water heater and Devin screaming something unintelligible in the background before being cut off. "Yeah," she said. "My mom. She's..." She tried to find the word. "A lot. In the best way. Good kind of a lot." "Exactly." She asked about boys. She didn't know why she said that. It came out before she'd cleared it. Jace's expression didn't shift dramatically or anything. He just glanced at her, a quick look, and something in his face did something small. What did you tell her? I told her it's only been a day. Fair. She told me she knew she was going to marry my dad on the first day they met. Also fair. Naomi looked ahead at the path. The dining hall was coming into view around the bend, its glass walls catching the afternoon light, the faint smell of lunch drifting out through some vent she couldn't see. My mom is very confident in her own judgment, she said. Smart woman. She has a very specific worldview. Sounds like it works for her. It did. It absolutely did. 23 years of marriage, and her parents still sat on the back porch together on Sunday evenings watching the water. That was the data point her mother based all relationship advice on, the Sunday porch evenings, which meant every single piece of advice she'd ever given Naomi came filtered through the lens of someone who'd found what she was looking for on day one and had never had reason to doubt her instincts since. Naomi had different instincts. Slower ones. More cautious. Did you call anyone? She asked. No one to call. Naomi stopped walking. No one, she said. No one. Jace kept walking at the same pace, easy, like the answer cost him nothing. She caught up quickly, her legs covering the distance in 2 strides. She studied the side of his face, the way he was looking at the dining hall doors without any particular expression. And she wanted to ask a follow-up question but couldn't figure out which one wouldn't feel like prying. She settled on nothing. Some things didn't need a response. Her mom had taught her that too, though in different words. They walked the last stretch in quiet, and Naomi was just reaching for the dining hall door when Jace said her name. Naomi. She turned. He was standing 2 steps back on the path, hands still in his blazer pockets, the California sun sitting directly behind him. He looked like someone who had been rehearsing something and had just decided to stop rehearsing and say it. I need a favor. She let the door close. Okay. Tonight. He shifted his weight slightly. The field. The one by the arena. There's a practice section off the east side that's open after 6. She nodded slowly, waiting. I want to practice my ability. I haven't really worked with it properly, and after today. He stopped. Started again. Garrett's assessment put me dead last in every category, which I knew was coming. I knew walking in. Naomi watched his face. But dead last means I'm already 4 weeks behind everyone else before evaluations even start. And if I wait to figure out my ability alone, I'll still be in the same place by the time rankings post. He looked at her directly then, and there was something in his amber eyes that wasn't performance. Just someone telling the truth and being mildly uncomfortable about it. I could use a partner, he said. Someone to work with. Someone who's not going to make it into something. Naomi thought about the hollow crawler lecture from this morning. The 45 seconds. The part about identifying the weakest member. She thought about her own 8 pull-ups, which she was still privately proud of, and her wave blast that had sent a simulation dummy 14 feet sideways during her awakening assessment but had also nearly taken out the examiner standing behind it. She thought about Captain Cross, who had looked at a fisherman's daughter and seen something worth a sponsorship. What time? She said. Something in Jace's posture shifted. Not relaxing exactly. More like a small recalibration. 7. Is that too late? No. She reached for the dining hall door again. 7 works. You don't have to run drills with me or anything. Just, Jace. She pulled the door open and looked back at him. I said yes. He was quiet for a second. Okay. Okay. She held the door. Now come eat lunch before I change my mind. He walked past her into the dining hall, and she followed, and the smell of garlic bread and something with lemon hit her immediately. She spotted Belle's blue hair near the middle of the room and Mark's glasses catching the overhead light beside her. She also noticed, very quietly and very privately, that she was already thinking about what to wear to the field tonight, which was completely irrelevant. Holy shit. She said yes. I walked into the dining hall 2 steps behind Naomi and spent the first 30 seconds doing math in my head that had nothing to do with lunch. 7 o'clock. Eastfield. 1 hour, probably. Isolated enough that nobody would be watching. Open enough that she wouldn't feel trapped. Naomi already had 34% attraction without me doing anything except existing near her and being mildly honest about getting one pull-up. That number was going to move tonight. The question was how far and how fast, because I had 47 hours left and bronze tier was survivable but silver tier was significantly better and Naomi was silver. The system wanted me to start with her. I was starting with her. I grabbed a tray. The lunch spread was legitimately good. The Academy understood that 17-year-olds who could rip concrete with their bare hands needed actual calories. So the protein options were extensive and the portion sizes were not insulting. I built a plate around a grilled chicken breast with lemon herb seasoning, a salad with cucumber and tomato and a tahini dressing that smelled like it had real garlic in it, and grabbed a bottle of sparkling water from the cooler near the end of the line. Naomi appeared at my elbow with a very similar plate, except she had added a dinner roll. "You got sparkling water," she said. "I like sparkling water. It tastes like disappointment. It tastes like commitment to hydration." She picked up a regular water bottle, and we moved toward the seating area, where Belle's blue hair was already visible from across the room. Mark stood up when we got to the table, which was just a Mark thing apparently, the kind of guy who stands up when people approach. He changed back into the obsidian uniform after gym and his glasses sat straight on his face and he looked like someone whose mom had raised him correctly. "Jace, Naomi. Good." He gestured broadly. "Meet Darius and Khalil." Two guys I hadn't cataloged yet. Darius was tall, dark-skinned, with the specific kind of shoulder width that suggested either excellent genetics or someone who had been lifting since middle school. He had a quiet energy, observant, the type who let rooms settle before deciding where he fit. Khalil was shorter with a wide smile and locks pulled back and the slightly manic brightness of someone who had been waiting all morning for the right audience. "Sup?" I said and sat down. "Sup?" Darius said. "Bro," Khalil said immediately, pointing at me. "You're the guy who got one pull-up." "I am that guy." "Khalil," Mark said. Darius looked at Khalil the way a parent looks at a child they love but find exhausting. I ate my chicken. It was good. The lemon was real lemon. Belle had been watching this entire exchange from across the table with the expression of someone cataloging information she hadn't decided what to do with yet. Her blue hair was still in the ponytail from gym, the asymmetric bangs framing the left side of her face, and she had the obsidian blazer open. I stared at the sandwich. It was chicken salad, on white bread, with what appeared to be lettuce and nothing else. "Out of everything in that entire dining hall," I said, "you chose a chicken salad sandwich." Belle looked at me. "What's wrong with chicken salad?" "You have chicken," pointed at my plate. "You have salad," pointed at my salad. "Right there. Both things. Individually. This is way different and you know it." "I genuinely do not know it. Chicken salad is its own thing. It is a lesser version of two better things combined into one worse thing." "Who?" Belle said, sitting up straighter. "Would ever confuse chicken and salad for chicken salad? They are completely different experiences. One of those experiences involves mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is a binding agent. Mayonnaise is a personal failing." Naomi, sitting next to me, was covering her mouth with her hand. Belle pointed at me. "You are a chicken salad sandwich hater and I want it on record. Record it." "I'm recording it." "Mark, you heard him." "I heard him," Mark confirmed, the traitor. "I had it every day for lunch back home," Belle said, and some of the edge came off. "I'd get the chips from the vending machine and put them in the sandwich." I stopped. "Put the chips in the sandwich." "Obviously. For the crunch. For the crunch and the salt." I looked at her sandwich. I looked at her. "That sounds incredible." "I know. Why don't you have chips right now?" "They don't sell them at the main line. I'd have to go to the vault and they're 6 points a bag." 6 points. 6 points for a bag of chips. The vault pricing was criminal. "Next time get the chips," I said. Belle looked at me with mild suspicion, like she was waiting for the rest of the sentence. When it didn't come, she ate a bite of her sandwich and looked out the window. "It's still good without them," she said. "I believe you." Naomi had been quietly eating her chicken and roll this entire time. She had good posture even sitting down. Long back, easy shoulders, the pink and black striped hair falling over one side and catching the afternoon light coming through the glass walls. I drank my sparkling water. "I like your water choice," Naomi said quietly to me. "Thank you. I still think it tastes like disappointment. It tastes like a person who has made a decision." She looked at the bottle. "What decision?" "The decision to be slightly more sophisticated." She laughed, and it was a real one, full, a little surprised. Belle glanced over at the sound and then looked back and forth between me and Naomi with an expression I recognized. Narrowed eyes. Small calculation happening behind them. She chewed a bite of her sandwich and looked at the ceiling and then back at her plate and shrugged one shoulder. Ate her sandwich. Didn't say anything. Smart girl. "What's your afternoon looking like?" Mark asked the table. "Dungeon ecology at 1, Jordan said, appearing from nowhere with a tray and sliding into the seat next to Darius. I genuinely hadn't seen him get food. He moved through spaces the way water does, finding the path of least resistance and taking it. He had a small bag of chips balanced on his tray. "How did you get chips?" Belle said immediately. Jordan looked at the chips. "Vending machine in the East Tower hallway, near the bathrooms. 2 points. Belle stared at him. 2 points, she said. 2 points. She looked at her chipless sandwich. Something happened behind her eyes that was very specifically grief. "Next time," I said. "Next time," she agreed with real feeling. Jordan sat down and opened his chips and offered the bag to Darius first. Darius took one. Khalil took 3. The bag came to me and I took one and it was good, it was a good chip, and Belle was watching this entire transaction from across the table with an expression that I respected tremendously. 2 points, she said again to no one. Dungeon ecology and then free afternoon, I said, redirecting before she actually developed a grudge. Garrett's assessment is posted tonight? Tomorrow morning, Mark said. The app updates at 6 a.m. Before we've seen the results, Darius said, speaking for the first time in a while. He had a measured way of entering conversations. Waited until he had something worth adding. They want us to sit with it overnight. Psychological warfare, Jordan said, eating his chips. Basic management technique, Darius said. Create the anxiety first. The ranking hits harder when you've already been stewing. Still works though, Khalil said. I've been stewing since it happened. Stewing helps nothing, Jordan said. I know that. I'm still stewing. The conversation moved to afternoon schedules and the app's class navigation features, which Jordan confirmed everyone should have downloaded by now, directed at me specifically, and I showed him my screen with the app open to prove I had it, and he looked genuinely relieved. Khalil wanted to know if anyone had seen the simulation complex yet, and Darius said yes. He'd walked past it this morning, and it was exactly as large as advertised. Mark said he'd looked up the ranking criteria from last year and was going to share the breakdown in the group chat. I ate my salad. 47 hours left and a date at 7 o'clock. It wasn't complicated. Naomi wasn't complicated. Not in the way Belle was complicated. Naomi was simple in the best possible way. She wanted to be seen. She wanted to be useful. She wanted someone to treat her like she was worth the time. I could do that. The part of me that had a conscience was noting this with some discomfort, and I acknowledged it the way you acknowledge a car alarm going off outside. Present. Noted. Not my immediate problem. Belle tore off the last piece of her sandwich and ate it with the focused concentration of someone finishing a meal they had genuine feelings about. Good, I asked. Good, she confirmed. Better with chips but good. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, she said like a vow. Naomi leaned slightly in my direction, and the sleeve of her blazer was almost touching mine. I looked at my sparkling water. I looked at the timer in the corner of my vision. 46 hours and 51 minutes. 7 o'clock was 5 hours away. I picked up my fork and finished my salad. I sat on the grass with my eyes closed, legs crossed, feeling the soft blades against my palms. It was 6:55 p.m. according to my internal death clock, which now stood at 46 hours and 22 minutes. 5 minutes until Naomi arrived. 5 minutes to prepare mentally for what needed to happen. The East Field was empty except for me. Perfect. The sunset painted the California sky in oranges and pinks, casting long shadows across the training area. I'd picked this spot deliberately public enough that she'd feel safe, private enough that nobody would interrupt us. I could do this shit. I had this, my first real chance to take control of this new life instead of just reacting. Naomi already liked me. 34% attraction without me trying was a solid foundation. I just needed to land the plan and drink her milk. Jace. I opened my eyes and immediately forgot how to breathe. Naomi stood 5 feet away wearing a black sports bra that hugged her curves perfectly, showing off shoulders toned from years of hauling fishing nets and a chest that strained against the fabric. Her flat stomach led to black athletic shorts that clung to her hips. Her legs looked impossibly long, thighs pressed together when she stood straight but revealing the smallest gap just beneath where they met. The sunset caught her pink and black striped hair, making it glow like something from another world. "Is this spot okay?" she asked, misinterpreting my silence. "I saw you sitting here from the path and dash. Perfect spot." I stood up quickly, adjusting my stance to hide my reaction to her outfit. "Thanks for coming." "Of course," she smiled, setting down a small gym bag. "You wanted to practice abilities, right? What should we do first?" I gestured toward her. "Let's start with yours. Only fair we help with your ability first." Her smile faltered. "Oh, you don't have to. My ability isn't much use for combat training." "Show me anyway. I want to see." Naomi bit her lip, then nodded. "Okay, stand back a little." I took 3 steps backward. Naomi closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and held her hands out, palms facing the sky. For a second, nothing happened. Then her hands began to glow with spiraling energy, bright blue-white waves that twisted around her fingers like living light. "I call it wave motion," she said quietly. "It converts my stamina into energy." The glow intensified, expanding outward from her palms until she held 2 basketball-sized spheres of swirling energy. Her pink eyes opened, now glowing with the same blue-white light. "Watch," she whispered. Naomi turned toward the tree-line about 50 yards away, brought her hands together, and the energy combined into a single pulsing mass. She thrust her palms forward, and holy shit, a beam of concentrated spiral energy shot from her hands, tearing across the field and smashing into the base of a tree with explosive force. The trunk splintered with a thunderous crack, and the tree toppled sideways into its neighbor. My jaw dropped. "Holy fuck." Naomi lowered her hands, the glow fading. She looked embarrassed. "That was just a small burst. I can do a lot more, but what? That was incredible." She sighed, shoulders slumping. "The drawback is stamina dependence. Everything I fire comes directly from my physical energy. That little demonstration? I'm already tired. If I do 3 or 4 big blasts in a real fight, I collapse." I studied her face. She wasn't exaggerating, her skin had paled slightly, and her breathing was quicker. "So you need to get stronger," I said. "Way stronger." Naomi nodded, frustration evident in her voice. "My ability is great for burst damage, but in extended combat, I'm useless after the first minute. It's why I've been training so hard. But progress is slow," I finished. "Exactly." The system's overlay appeared in my vision as I looked at her. Naomi love measurements. 36D-27-38 rank. Silver current attraction. 42% silver tier essence was worth 25 points per cup normally. 50 on first extraction. A single full session with Naomi could net me 400 points, 4 days of life. And her ability was legitimately powerful, worth stealing if I ever got her to that point. Plus, her attraction had climbed 3 percentage points since lunch. Without me doing anything except existing near her. This was going to work. "My turn," I said, stepping forward. "My ability is... well, it's weird. Hard to explain. Easier to demonstrate." Naomi tucked a strand of pink-striped hair behind her ear. "What's it called?" I hesitated. "Euphoric feedback." "That sounds... interesting?" "It's a touch-based ability. I can transmit sensations directly to your nervous system. I kept my explanation vague but not misleading. It has applications for both combat and healing. Naomi's eyes widened slightly. So you can make people feel things? Like pain? Or its opposite? I said carefully. I can dampen pain signals, enhance positive sensations, create numbing effects. Useful for battlefield first aid. Not a complete lie, just extremely selective truth. That actually sounds really practical, she said, looking impressed. How does it work? I need to make physical contact. May I? I held out my hand. Naomi hesitated for just a second before placing her palm against mine. Her skin was warm and slightly calloused from years of physical labor. I focused on activating euphoric feedback at the lowest setting, intensity level 2. Just enough for her to feel a pleasant warmth spreading from our point of contact. Oh, she said softly, eyes widening. That's nice. I increased it gradually to level 3, and her fingers twitched against mine. It's like warmth? But more than that. Her cheeks flushed slightly, like a really good hot chocolate on a cold day. But the feeling is in my hand. That's the idea. I can adjust the intensity and the type of sensation. I pulled my hand away, cutting the connection. In combat, I could make an enemy's arm go numb. Or I could help an injured teammate by blocking their pain temporarily. Total bullshit about the combat applications, but I needed a cover story that sounded plausible. And technically, I could make an enemy's arm go numb by making them feel so good they lost motor function. That's amazing, Naomi said, looking at her hand where the sensation had been. And you said you're behind in training? That seemed pretty controlled to me. What you just felt was intensity level 3 out of 10, I explained. I have trouble maintaining anything above 6 for more than a few seconds. And my range is limited to direct contact. Naomi nodded thoughtfully. So you need practice holding higher intensities for longer periods? Exactly. Well, she squared her shoulders. I can help with that. What do you need me to do? I glanced around the field. Still empty. Perfect. The training exercise is simple. I need to maintain contact and gradually increase intensity while you tell me what you're feeling. If it becomes uncomfortable at any point, just say so and I'll stop immediately. Naomi nodded seriously. I can do that. Let's sit, I suggested, lowering myself back to the grass. It'll be easier to maintain contact. She sat cross-legged in front of me, knees almost touching mine. This close, I could see the faint freckles across her nose, smell the light floral scent of her shampoo. Her chest rose and fell with each breath, the black sports bra containing but not hiding her curves. Ready? I asked. She nodded, holding out her hands. I activated euphoric feedback at level 3 again, establishing a baseline she was already familiar with. Same as before, she confirmed, smiling slightly. I nodded and increased it to level 4. Her lips parted. Oh, that's stronger. Good stronger or bad stronger? Good. Definitely good. Level 5. Her fingers tightened around mine. Wow. Still okay? Yeah, it's just... She blushed deeply. Feels really nice. Like, really nice. I knew exactly what she meant. Level 5 was where euphoric feedback transitioned from general warmth to distinctly pleasurable sensations. Nothing overwhelming yet, but definitely heading in that direction. I'm going to try level 6, I said. Remember, you can tell me to stop anytime. She nodded, eyes locked on mine. I pushed the intensity to level 6, and Naomi gasped. Too much? I asked, ready to dial it back. No, she said quickly. Just unexpected. It's like the feeling is spreading. Not just in my hands anymore. That's because it wasn't. Level 6 and above, euphoric feedback began to trigger responses in the brain's pleasure centers directly. The sensation would feel like it was radiating through her entire body. Does it feel like it's moving up your arms? She nodded, cheeks flushed. And other places. Our eyes met, and I saw the exact moment she realized what kind of sensation my ability was actually transmitting. Her pupils dilated, and her breathing quickened. But she didn't pull away. I should probably explain, I said softly. Euphoric feedback doesn't just create generic positive sensations. Specifically, pleasure. Physical pleasure. Naomi swallowed. I figured that out. Do you want me to stop? She was quiet for a moment, then shook her head. No. It's part of training, right? You need to practice maintaining higher intensities. God. She was making this so easy. Almost too easy. My conscience pinged once before I shoved it back into its box. If you're sure, I said. I'm going to try level 7 now. This is where I usually start losing control of the ability. She nodded, and I could see her pulse fluttering at her throat. I increased to level 7. Naomi's reaction was immediate. Her back arched slightly, and a small sound escaped her lips before she could stop it. Her hands gripped mine tightly. That's, she whispered, intense. Level 7 was where euphoric feedback began to feel like direct sexual stimulation. I knew exactly what she was experiencing, waves of pleasure pulsing through her entire body, concentrating in her most sensitive areas. Too much? I asked again. Her eyes had gone unfocused. No, wow. I maintained level 7, watching as her breathing became more ragged. Her thighs pressed together, unconsciously seeking friction. You're doing great, I told her. I've never held level 7 this long before. That was true. My mana was burning steadily, but I had plenty in reserve. The system was logging successful ability usage. Naomi's pink and black hair fell across her face as she looked down at our joined hands. It feels so real, like you're actually, like someone is. I know, I said softly. That's what makes it useful for medical applications. The brain can't distinguish between this and actual physical stimulation. Another half-truth. The medical applications were theoretical at best. How much higher does it go? She asked, voice barely audible. 3 more levels. I paused. Level 8 is where most people find it overwhelming. She bit her lower lip. Can we try? Just so you can practice control. My pulse quickened. Are you sure? She nodded, not meeting my eyes. I increased to level 8. Naomi's entire body tensed. Her head fell back, exposing the smooth line of her throat. Oh my God! She gasped. Level 8 was where euphoric feedback began to mimic the sensation of approaching orgasm. Not quite there, but building toward it. Her body would be flooded with pleasure, making coherent thought difficult. Naomi? Still with me? Why yes, she managed. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, straining against her sports bra. I didn't know abilities could. Few people have this specific ability, I explained, maintaining the intensity. It's rare. She nodded, clearly struggling to focus on my words. Her thighs were pressed tightly together now, muscles tense. You're handling level 8 better than most, I said. Is this helping your training? She asked, concern for me somehow breaking through her pleasure-hazed state. That tiny question hit me right in the chest. Even now, she was thinking about helping me. Yes, I said. This is exactly what I needed. The system overlay appeared again. Naomi love measurements. 36D minus 27 minus 38 rank. Silver current attraction. 50%. Holy shit. Her attraction had jumped 8 percentage points during our training. I'm going to try level 9, I said softly. This is as high as I've ever gone. It's extremely intense. Are you absolutely sure? She looked me directly in the eyes. I want to help you. I increased to level 9. Naomi's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Her back arched sharply, and she cried out, a sound quickly muffled as she bit her lip. Her entire body shuddered, and her hands gripped mine so tightly her knuckles went white. Level 9 was just shy of forcing orgasm. It kept the body perpetually on the edge, building and building without release. Oh God, she gasped. Jace, it's too much, I can't. I immediately reduced the intensity back to level 7. I'm sorry. Too fast. She shook her head, breathing hard. No, it's okay. I just wasn't prepared for how strong it would be. Her eyes met mine, pupils so dilated they nearly swallowed the pink. I've never felt anything like that. I bet she hadn't. Not many people experience level 9 euphoric feedback and remain coherent. Thank you for helping me practice, I said, genuinely impressed by her resilience. I've never maintained level 9 even for those few seconds before. She nodded, still trying to regulate her breathing. Happy to help, she managed. I gradually reduced the intensity, bringing her down through level 6, then 5, then 4, giving her body time to adjust rather than cutting the sensation abruptly. When I finally released her hands, she looked almost dazed. Her skin glowed with a light sheen of sweat, and her chest still rose and fell with deep breaths. Are you okay? I asked. Yeah. She tucked her hair behind her ear. Just need a minute. I gave her a full minute to catch her breath, watching the sunset paint golden highlights in her hair. The timer in the corner of my vision reminded me I had 46 hours and 7 minutes left. Time to commit. Naomi, I said quietly, there's another part of my ability. A bigger part. Something I can't share with anyone else. She looked up, still flushed. Another part? You'd be the first person to ever see it. I met her eyes. But I need you to trust me completely. What I'm about to show you is going to seem impossible. Jace, what are you talking about? I can't explain it. I can only show you. I held out my hand. Do you trust me? She stared at my palm for a long moment. Her breathing had finally steadied, her expression shifting between curiosity and wariness. I don't understand what you're asking. I know. That's why I need you to trust me first. I kept my hand extended. Please. Something in her face softened. The same thing that made her check on me after pull-ups, that made her worry about whether my training was helping even while level 8 pleasure was flooding her system. She placed her hand in mine. Yes, I trust you. I activated Private Sanctum. Reality folded. The field, the sunset, the distant sound of the ocean, all of it vanished. For half a second we existed in absolute darkness, and then light bloomed around us. We stood in a bedroom that definitely didn't exist on the East Field. King-sized bed with white sheets. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a cityscape at night. Soft lighting from recessed fixtures. Modern furniture in blacks and grays. Naomi's hand tightened on mine as she spun around, taking in the impossible space. What? Where are we? I watched her process it. The way her pink eyes went wide. The way her free hand came up to cover her mouth. Welcome to my real ability, I said quietly. Nobody else knows about this. Just you. She turned back to me, and I could see the exact moment genuine fear entered her expression. Jace, what did you do? Where's the field? How did you? We're safe, I said quickly. Promise. This is Private Sanctum. This is a pocket dimension. We're still technically on the field, but nobody can see us, nobody can interrupt us, and time flows normally. We have complete privacy here. Her breathing quickened again, but this time it wasn't pleasure. I know it's weird, I said, watching Naomi back away from me, but I swear it's safe. Her pink eyes darted around the room, searching for doors, windows, any exit at all. The cityscape beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows was nothing but a projection, and we both knew it. Take me back, right now. Her voice trembled with barely controlled panic. I checked the timer floating in the corner of my vision. 28 minutes of Private Sanctum remaining. Fuck. Naomi, I understand this is scary. Scary? She laughed, high and shrill. You just teleported us into some pocket dimension without warning. What even is this place? Where are we actually? We're still on the field. Physically, our bodies haven't moved. That's impossible. She shook her head. That would be a space manipulation ability. Those are S-rank. Elite 10 level. I know. You're a lottery admission. You can't have. I know what I am. I stepped toward her, hands raised to show I meant no harm. Naomi, please. I didn't bring you here to hurt you. She backed up until her legs hit the bed. Then why? Why show me this? Good fucking question. Why had I jumped straight to private sanctum? The smart play would have been another euphoric feedback session, work up to extraction. But no, I had to go full creeper and drag her into my pocket dimension. 27 minutes left. I need your help, I said finally. And I don't have much time. Time for what? Her eyes narrowed. What exactly do you want from me? That was the million-point question. I wanted her essence. I wanted the 4 days of life extension her Silvertear milk would give me. I wanted her ability if I could manage 3 orgasms in one session. But I couldn't just say that. Could I? Fuck it. Maybe the truth was the best option. A heavily edited version. Anyway. I'm dying, Naomi. Her face transformed instantly. What do you mean? I mean I have less than 2 days to live unless I can find a way to extend my timer. She stared at me, pink eyes wide. I don't understand. My ability isn't just euphoric feedback and private sanctum. Those are just tools. I rubbed my face. The whole package is called Pleasure Plunderer. Pleasure. Plunder. Her voice trailed off, the words clearly making no sense to her. It gives me special powers, but they come at a cost. I have a death timer counting down in my head right now. I tapped my temple. I'll die when it hits 0 unless I can extract essence from women. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Extract essence? What does that even mean? 25 minutes. It means exactly what it sounds like. My ability induces lactation in women. I drink their milk and it extends my lifespan. I watched her face cycle through confusion, disbelief, disgust, and then finally settle on anger. Is this some kind of sick joke? She stood straight, hands clenched. You brought me to your weird sex dungeon dimension to tell me you need to drink breast milk to survive? Do I look stupid to you? No. You look like someone who could save my life. I stepped closer. I know how this sounds, but I'm not lying. Look. I projected my system interface into the air between us. Divine Milking System Jace Monroe lifespan. 45 hours 43 minutes. The glowing blue text hung in the air like an accusation. Naomi stared at it, then at me. This is real. Her voice had gone small. Very real. And very stupid. Trust me, I'm not thrilled about it either. She reached out to touch the floating text, her fingers passing through it. You really are dying. Unless I extract essence from a woman, yes. I let the interface fade. That's why I brought you here. Private sanctum gives us total privacy. No one can see in, no one can interrupt. It's the only safe place I can do this. Do what, exactly? Wariness returned to her voice. Extract essence. Through. I gestured vaguely at her chest. Naomi's hands moved automatically to cover herself, even though she was fully clothed in her sports bra and shorts. You want to milk me? Like a cow. I winced at her phrasing. I wouldn't put it like that. How would you put it, then? The anger was back. I'd say I need your help to survive. And this is the only way the system allows it. She looked away, arms still crossed protectively over her chest. And that's why you used your other ability on me? To get me, what? Turned on enough to agree. Shit. She was sharp. Partially, I admitted. No point lying now. But also to show you what I can do for you in return. Her eyes shot back to mine. What? My ability isn't just taking. When I use euphoric feedback during extraction, it feels good. Really good. Like level 9 but better. 22 minutes. Her cheeks flushed at the reminder of what level 9 had felt like. So you're offering me, what? Orgasms in exchange for drinking my milk. When you put it like that, it sounds ridiculous. It is ridiculous. She threw her hands up. This whole situation is ridiculous. We were just practicing abilities on the field, and now we're in some fake apartment, and you're telling me you need to suck on my breasts or you'll die. How am I supposed to react? I ran a hand through my hair. Look, I know it's a lot, but I'm being honest with you. That's worth something, right? She laughed. Honest? You lied about your ability from the start. I showed you part of my ability. The part one could safely demonstrate in public. Naomi paced to the window, staring out at the fictional cityscape. How much time do you have? Total, 45 hours and change. And how much would this give you? Your essence? About 4 days. She turned back to me. That's it? For days. It's silver tier. 25 points per mouthful, 8 mouthfuls per cup. That's 200 points, and I need 100 for a day of life. I paused. But first extractions are worth double, so yours would give me 400 points. For days, roughly. Naomi stared at me, then sank onto the edge of the bed. This is crazy. Tell me about it. But why me? Why not, I don't know, someone else? There are hundreds of women at this school. I sat beside her, leaving plenty of space between us. Your attraction was high enough that I thought you might actually listen instead of immediately calling for security. My attraction? Another part of my ability. I can see. Compatibility percentages. You were at 34% this morning. 50% after our practice session. She blushed again, deeper this time. You can see if women are attracted to you? Among other things. I didn't mention the bust measurements part. 19 minutes. So what happens now? She asked quietly. That's up to you. We have 19 minutes left in private sanctum. After that, we go back to the field, whether we've done anything or not. She nodded slowly. And if I say no? Then I respect that and look for another solution. Even though you might die? I shrugged. I'm not going to force anyone. That's not who I am. Naomi studied my face, searching for deception. She wouldn't find any. I might be desperate, but I had lines I wouldn't cross. How does it work? She asked finally. The extraction. I touch your breasts and it triggers lactation. Then I drink directly. Each mouthful gives me points. The points extend my lifespan. And it feels good? With your euphoric feedback. Very good. Most women climax during extraction. Her cheeks burned crimson. Just from that. Combined with the feedback, yes. She looked down at her hands. Does it hurt? The lactation part. No. The ability doesn't work that way. It's not painful. Just intense. 16 minutes. Naomi took a deep breath. I want to help you. My heart skipped. You do. She nodded, not meeting my eyes. But I'm scared. I've never done anything like this. I know. We can go slow. I moved closer to her on the bed. Just tell me if you want to stop at any point. Okay. She finally looked up at me. What do I do? First, we need skin contact. I gestured to her sports bra. You'll need to. Right? She reached for the hem of her bra, then hesitated. Can you look away for a second? I turned my head. Of course. I heard the rustle of fabric, then her soft voice. Okay. When I turned back, Naomi sat with her arms crossed over her bare chest, her sports bra discarded beside her. Her face was almost the same color as her pink hair streaks. You can lie back if it's more comfortable, I suggested. She nodded and reclined on the bed, arms still covering herself. Like this. Perfect. I moved to kneel beside her. I'm going to start euphoric feedback first. Okay? Make it easier for both of us. Okay. I placed my hand on her arm, activating euphoric feedback at level 4. Warm enough to be pleasant, not so intense it would frighten her. That's nice. I'll increase it gradually. Level 5. Her arms relaxed slightly. Level 6. Her eyes fluttered closed. That's, wow. Still okay? Yeah. Her teeth grazed her bottom lip. Better than okay. I raised it to level 7, and she gasped, her back arching slightly. Her arms fell away from her chest, revealing her breasts fully. Goddamn. 36D was the technical measurement, but numbers couldn't capture the reality. Full, round breasts with dark pink nipples already hardening from the feedback. They rose and fell with her quickening breath. Level 8. I warned her. The pleasure waves hit, and Naomi moaned, a sound that went straight to my groin. Her hands clutched at the bedspread. Jace, I can't. You're doing amazing, I said, my voice rougher than I intended. I'm going to touch you now, okay? She nodded, eyes still closed. I placed my palm against her right breast, feeling its weight and warmth. The extraction ability activated instantly. Naomi's gaze went wide. Oh, something's happening. It's starting, I told her. You'll feel warmth, then pressure. I feel it, she gasped. It's like fullness. I could see it happening. Her breasts swelled slightly, filling with the essence my system craved. Small droplets of milk appeared at her nipples. You're doing great. I maintained level 8 on the feedback. I'm going to extract now. 13 minutes left. I leaned down and took her nipple into my mouth. The moment my lips sealed around it, warm milk spurted against my tongue. Holy fuck. It was sweet and rich, unlike anything I'd tasted before. The first mouthful filled me completely, and I swallowed with a loud gulp that echoed in the quiet room. / you drink a mouthful of milk from a silver tier target. As a result, you get 50 points. /